You're watching the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Now it's time for the Brent and Austin Show.
Hey, are we underway? Hamby, did you already run the open? Did I miss it? Sorry, I missed it. I was like, I was working on an email. I was crafting something right there.
Yeah, it's Monday. It happens.
Hey,
or I guess
it's actually Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
So
I know. It feels like a Monday.
I just missed that part because we can never hear the open, so I was like, oh wait, but I was just yapping away with Austin. He's in Wisconsin. I'm down here in like the Melbourne area, and we were just talking and talking. I was like, oh. Well, guess what? That's what we do. Let's talk. It's the show. Welcome in on a Tuesday. I was thinking this real quick before we even get into anything and where we are and, oh, my gosh, what's going on. There's been a lot going on. We took so we had Monday off. And by the way, Monday had nothing to do with, like, Austin's fight or anything else. Like, we were already planning to take Monday off, like, weeks ago. And then there's been a series of events that have transpired that has Austin really up in Wisconsin, which also transpired last week, not necessarily coming off the weekend. But I was thinking this just to get away from once we will have some fun today on the show and just regular show after we get through some serious stuff. Yeah, because we're not going to do this for 3 hours. But would you rather if you could take Monday off or Friday off all the time? What would it be?
Oh, Brent, give me. Actually, it's a good question because I can have Sunday, to kind of hang out at night. I would still take Friday off, though, right? Because it's just like it's all about that weekend, leading up towards that weekend. So if Thursday is kind of like the last work day, go and give me Friday off, man. And I'll just roll that Friday, that Saturday, and that Sunday. Yeah, let's go and do that.
I figured most people would probably do that, right? I mean, that's Hammy. You got that? You're a Monday or a Friday guy off. You're a weird schedule guy right now, too. And you're young and you're working, you're go-getting. You don't care about those Mondays off or Fridays off, but Friday off every time, says Delphonic. Yeah, I would think most people would go with that. Because Monday's odd, right? Like a lot of people get Fridays. It's funny because it's cool you get Mondays off a lot, like when you're a kid. But then, like if you're in your adult life, I think most people try to grab that extra day on the front end on that Friday. So that probably makes the most sense. Hamby, I don't know if you have an opinion. Can you hear us? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going Friday too because Monday, nobody else is doing anything unless you've already planned it out with other people. Friday, you have a lot better of a shot to do something fun with other people. I don't need a whole day just to do my own thing necessarily. I mean, every once in a while, but give me that Friday so I can book another day of the trip or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's hey, we're not doing that yet, right? Has anybody done that? I mean, I know we're like getting rid of daylight savings, and we've got a lot of changes going on in the world.
That's this Sunday, by the way.
Has anybody proposed that here in the United States? Are we doing 4? Are we going to do 4 10-dayers here? I mean,
who knows, man? Maybe Trump will implement something. Who knows? He's all over the place right now. So maybe him and Elon will get together and 4-day work weeks. Let's go.
Let's try.
But meanwhile, like there's gonna be an NFL game pretty soon, probably every single day of the week. So it is what it is, right?
That's what it is. All right, give us an update, man. What the heck's going on in your world? By the way, it's nothing crazy for my world. It's just I have definitely downgraded. On Friday, I was in front of the Gulf of whatever it's called anymore with a beautiful backdrop that was not a green screen. Now I'm in a hotel where I look like, it's a nice enough hotel, by the way. I'm not complaining, but the background makes it seem like I might be in a jail cell.
looks like you're staying at like a Motel 6 in like in Vegas right now. If that's where you're at, man. I mean, as someone who takes pride in like getting the master shot, I've seen better, Brent. I've seen better.
I'll tell you. I've been trying. There's nothing here, man. Like usually there's a painting on the wall or something. There's just nothing here. Even the and by the way, the hotel's great, but the light, like the pictures, not really good. Like there's nothing to dress this thing up. So you
look like you're there for an edition of slam poetry.
That, or it looks like he's filming like the new updated version of The Shining. One of those two, but it looks great regardless.
Well, I made my. We went from Inglewood to Fort Myers, watch Kaylee play Drove to Orlando at like 2 a.m. to catch a 6 o'clock flight to Vegas. Went to Vegas, flew back we were there for 26 hours, and then flew back yesterday. And now we're down here in Orlando. Kaylee's got a game today, so we're going to go to that and then head back to normal. So that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to?
Yeah, man. So I've been up to a lot, honestly. We'll kind of set the scene, which took part not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before that. So 2 weeks ago. So basically how my schedule worked was I got to Vegas a little early, right, to acclimate and everything. And I get my massage and everything. And then it's happened Saturday, but Sunday I find out. So I get my massage on Sunday. And Sunday, like I get my massage, and that's kind of like the start of the fight week, right? So once I get my massage, my deep tissue massage, it's time to go to war, get my mind ready to roll. So I get out of my massage and I get a phone call from a family friend back in Wisconsin who I haven't talked to in a very long time. He's kind of like a skiing buddy. And he gives me a call and he says that Mark, my stepdad, who we call Bison, we've talked about him on the show many times before, giant Packer fan, was in a big ski accident. To the point where he fractured his skull in 4 places, broke his neck, broke his back, broke his ribs, punctured his lung, broke his wrist, and then broke his heel, like shattered his heel as well. So I get that call, and at that time, obviously he wasn't awake. He wasn't waking up. They had to, take him to WAS to the hospital, which I'm at right now. And it was kind of a thing where I didn't know if he was going to make it or not, for the next couple of days, because he had a lot of brain bleeding and he was, and just not waking up. So I dealt with that for a couple of days, and I was in touch with nurses and everything, and the doctors and some of his friends that came to go see him, and wasn't a lot to report. Obviously he was in a bad ski accident, wasn't waking up. That's all I had to go off of. Thursday, he started to wake up, and this last Thursday, he started to wake up and he started blinking his eyes and everything. And it was funny because the last time I talked to him, we were talking about my son's birthday, because my son's birthday was this it would have been last Tuesday. So, that's the last time I talked to him. I was like, yeah, I'll give your son a call, Ronan a call and everything, and we'll wish him happy birthday. Yeah, sounds great, man. So his sister, my aunt, mentioned, hey, Ronan's thinking about you. And once she mentioned Ronan's name, his eyes blinked a little bit and he got a smirk on his face, which was a great sign. So that was on Thursday. On Friday, he opened his eyes and he could talk, but it wasn't all clear. But he knew that I had a fight on Saturday and he wanted to give me a call. So I got a voicemail on Friday during my weigh-in, actually. And I see it's like, holy crap, Mark Maher, like my stepdad's calling me, and I couldn't answer because I'm literally getting ready to walk to the scale. So I weigh in, that goes great and everything. And I listen to the voicemail and it's his voice. And, he just said, hey, Oss, I'm okay. And then, from there, it was kind of in and out. So obviously I could tell that he wasn't necessarily himself, and I didn't want to call him back because I didn't want to add more stress. And I knew he was okay. That's all I needed, So
yeah.
Saturday happens, man, and obviously didn't go my way. Had a great first round. The second round, and this is nothing against him, man, because this is not his fault. I mean, honestly, and I've said this many times, I've fought with a heavy heart before, and this wasn't the case. I knew he was going to be okay. He's a tough dude, and that had nothing to do with my performance, And in the first round, I go out there and I do my thing. I stick to the game plan. And I think I got a little overconfident where I'm like, wow, this guy's supposed to be this great striker and everything. I already dropped him. I've wobbled him twice. This second round, I'm just going to get up off the stool and go finish him and call it a day. And that's what I tried to do. And he did a great job. His team did a great job. My opponent, Mario Pinto, did a great job of, I think they knew that when you coax me into a firefight, I like to get into a firefight. And they kind of coaxed me into it. He came out swinging right away. And instead of just moving my feet and moving around the cage, I entertained it. And I got clipped, man. And I got dropped. And Obviously it looked really bad. I saw the highlights. Obviously, it's everywhere on the internet, so I've seen the highlights, and it looked really bad. But I passed all my testing. After the fight, when they walk you out of the cage, they ask you a bunch of questions. Where are you? What's the date? I passed all that stuff. Had to have the conversation with my son, who was there in person and a little scared for me, but I had to reassure him, like, dude, I promise I'm okay. And this is life sometimes, right? This is life where sometimes, you're winning and sometimes you're losing, but it's about how you respond to it, and the first thing, well, not the first thing, but first thing I said, I love you. But after that, I kind of reminded him, like, hey, man, remember we were here last year and we were celebrating and we were having fun and we were dancing because I won. Well, my opponent wasn't doing that for the last fight, right? And now it's my turn to kind of just sit here and feel a little bad about it. My opponent's celebrating, and that's the way life works sometimes. So he understood that. It put him in a better mind space, better headspace and everything. So we leave the arena, we go get some food and everything. I had some friends and family there as well. My mom was there, so we got some food together and everything, and that was great to see everybody. And obviously, it wasn't a lot to celebrate, but it was still good just to kind of be in everybody's company. And then after that, my son went back to Jacksonville with some of my teammates, and then I flew directly to Wisconsin because, well, I want to be with my stepdad, right? So I got to Wisconsin Monday night, so I didn't get to see him Monday night. But then, I'm sorry, I got to Wisconsin Sunday night, yeah. And then Monday night, I got to see him and everything. And the biggest thing right now, and I'm a very goal-oriented person, and so is he. And that's where I get it from, right? And I get a lot of my personality and my drive from him. So the first thing I do when I get there is like, all right, where are we at? What can we do? How can we progress forward? And obviously, with a catastrophic head injury, you just have to be patient, and you have to you have to make him feel as comfortable as possible. And right now, he's at the point where he knows who he is. And that was the crazy thing too, because I get to the hospital, and this is yesterday. So I get there probably about 3 p.m. And the nurse goes, just a heads up, but he's probably not going to, know who you are or anything. So just be prepared for that. And then, we'll just keep making him feel comfortable, right? Just be calming and be a calming factor in his life. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Say no more. So I get there, and when I walk in, he seems agitated and he doesn't really know where he's at. And, obviously, like, I think this is kind of the benefit of being a fighter sometimes, is when you're in the chaos, you go, you respond, and you do what you have to do. So I walk in and I go, hey, what's up, dude? Because that's how we talk. And if you ever wonder, like, where I get my personality, my humor, my demeanor from, it's him. I'm essentially his, like, mini me. So I get in the room, I go, hey, what's up, dude? And the nurse goes, hey, your son's here to see you. And all of a sudden he kind of turns up, and I agitate him, where he goes, and I can't repeat exactly what he said because there's some curse words, but he goes, holy bleep, Oz, how the hell you doing? In that classic Midwestern accent. And I do, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How you doing? He's like, they got me in here. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, it's okay. But so he recognized me right off the bat. And that was a good sign. And since then, he hasn't forgotten who I am, which is even a better sign. There's been a couple instances where he forgets where he is in the hospital and everything, but that's why I'm here to remind him. And the biggest goal, like I said, so we're very goal-oriented people, right? So I'm like, what's the goal here? What are we trying to do? What's the next step? And then the biggest step right now is at nighttime when he sleeps, he gets more disoriented. So when that happens, he can become a little aggressive, and actually I had to restrain him the past couple of nights. So it was my goal to say, okay, I'm going to stay with him. I'm going to make him feel comfortable, feel like he's at home. And in doing that, hopefully, the brain comes back a little bit, and he kind of gets his wits about him a little more. And that's what happened last night. So last night he had dinner, and usually dinner times when he gets a little agitated and they have to restrain him and everything. We had dinner. I had it in my mind, like, you know what? Let's make it feel like home. Growing up, we always watched Seinfeld when we had dinner. So we watched a lot of Seinfeld. And thankfully, with my memory, I remembered all his favorite episodes as a kid that we used to watch together. So I had Seinfeld on my cell phone, which is, YouTube TV, paying $100 a month, it seems like, for it. So thank God I'm getting my money's worth now. Keep jacking those rates, YouTube TV. But so I played all his favorite episodes last night, and that really helped. He was laughing, I was laughing, and it felt like being at home. So that put him in, a decent sleep. He did wake up one time, and but like it was okay, because I said, "Hey, dude, I'm here. No worries, man. You're in good hands." He's like, "Okay, cool." I'm just like, "All you got to do right now, man, is just go back to sleep, and then we'll see in the morning." And that's exactly what he did. So that's a great step forward. And I think a couple more nights like that, and we'll get him out of the ICU, and we'll go from there. And I get what people are saying, like, "Wow, that's a lot of information you're dumping on us, Austin." But trust me, this is he wanted to come on the show and talk about the Packers' new defensive coordinator because he's a giant Packers fan. He's like, hey, Aus, if you need me kind of as like a little Packers, liaison, just go ahead and have me on the show for a little bit. I can talk all about him. I mean, I was pissed off. We let him go and everything. I'm like, yeah, dude, we'll see. But so take it from a diehard Packers fan who got a Packers tattoo after they won the Super Bowl. He was very sad to see the current defensive coordinator of the Jaguars leave and everything. But overall, man, spirits are okay. Spirits actually really good. I'm in a good spot. Obviously, I fought, I lost. Life goes on, and it's crazy how sometimes life can kind of propel you into what really matters and what your job is. And yeah, fighting is what I do, but it's not who I am. I'm a father and I'm a son. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, you're getting both those experiences this week. You do that well. So, by the way, if you in the middle of the show, if you can just go ask him about Jair Alexander a little bit, we'll take that too.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Like he'll be happy about that.
Yeah.
Well said, man. I know it's been a tough week overall and tough weekend for you, but I know there's a lot going on. So I don't know why the hell you're hanging out with us, quite frankly. But hopefully we'll take you away from all that for a little bit. But hey, you're always good about this, and you just were. But I do want to, and obviously, best thoughts with Mark and your stepdad and everything. Keep us posted on that, and I'm sure we will get it. But we were watching the fight, Hamby and I, so we were talking back and forth. And I think the one thing after you lost the fight, we were just like, man, like the crazy thing is, and I don't pretend to know this stuff very well, but I've obviously watched you now over the last however many years. How long has it been? When was the first fight?
Oof. I mean, as an amateur, my first fight would have been back in 2000 and I think 16, 17, man. So like, it's been a while.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, I can't claim to have remembered fights like then, but obviously more recent ones, let's just say. And so my knowledge has gone up a little bit, but at least just naked eye watching. And it was like, man, I just thought, I couldn't imagine that first round could have gone any better.
It really
I thought
didn't.
You probably were doing like the game plan was right on. Everything was, and you really did stun him. And I actually told Steph this because like she don't want to watch, and so I was kind of telling her, but and we were just talking about how it happens in the heavyweight, and I was telling Hamby this too. I was like, hey, this is why you watch like we watch with one eye, because it doesn't matter what it looks like through the whole time. It just takes one. And but I said it almost exactly what your analysis was of it, and when you texted me and we just discussed it a little bit, I think I was pretty spot on with my own analysis. I think when you stunned him a bit and you dominated and you were like, hey, there's benefit to going after the knockout in this sport. Right? Like there's benefit from a cash standpoint, from to the trajectory you are on. So like it's enticing to go after the knockout. And so like I can see, that's exactly what I thought happened. I was like, okay, he's got him. And he feels like he's got him. And like you were very aggressive when you stumbled him. I think you thought you had a moment there where you could have maybe finished it off right then. I think that was in the first round. I'm not sure if that was early second or first round.
That was the first round. Correct.
And then so I think, all those things that you just said add up. And then you kind of just left yourself open there for obviously a guy who's pretty strong. He's a
very
big
strong,
dude too,
man.
and a pretty talented guy, it looks like too.
Very talented striker. And like it's crazy how everything in that first round went exactly how we planned it, because I talked about this on the show as well. He was a very patient fighter, and we knew he was going to be patient, especially for his UFC debut. And right off the get-go, we established like, hey, if you touch him right away and he feels your power, he may be even more patient, and he may be able to, a little scared to come at you. So I throw kind of like, I'm just kind of circling. I throw a 1-2 and I feel my 2. It doesn't land him flush, but it connects and hits him in the nose. And it kind of wobbled him back a little bit. I'm like, okay, he's felt my power now. Let's see how he responds to it. Because one or two things are going to happen. Either you get hit in the face and it's like, oh, I don't like that. Let me go at him now and make a mistake. Or it's like, okay, maybe I'm a little more timid now. Let me take my time. He was a little more timid. So, I just kept on throwing feints, kept on moving that first round, and I feinted and I saw him kind of duck a little bit. And when I threw that cross that knocked him down, I didn't even throw it hard. It was just more of like just speed. And it actually, when I threw it, it wasn't even flush, because when I threw it, it went between like his hands, like he was up like this. It went between his hands, but I maybe got like 30%, 40% on it. So once I felt that, I'm like, oh, okay. I just got to land one time on him and it's game over. So that's why then, like, I dropped him. I try to go chase him and everything, and obviously it doesn't work out like I wanted it to. We go to the second round, and while I'm on the stool, the whole time my coach is like, all right, just be patient. He's going to come out and get that round back. You won the first round, but there's 2 more rounds to go. Just be patient, be patient. And I'm just like, yeah, you got it. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, dude, I can put him out. Like if I touch him with my power, I can put him out, and I can get out of here, and I can just say see ya. And that's where my head was at. So when he comes out in that second round and he starts swinging for the fences, I'm like, let's go then, man. Let's see what we got. And that's where I made the mistake. I think that if I would have just stayed patient, circled, kept my hands up, and just bought my shots, yeah, I think eventually I would have picked him apart and it would have ended. But that's not what I did, man. It's what I got to live with. It's what you sign up for. It's all part of the experience. It's all part of learning and growing. But yeah, I just think something. And this isn't like in the past couple of fights, like I've listened to my coaches and everything, and it's nothing against my coaches because we had the game plan. It was just me trying to execute it. Unfortunately, I got a little too aggressive. Maybe I saw a $50,000 bonus in my future. Maybe I saw, Dana White, giving me praise and everything. And I said, let me go for that finish right here. And I shouldn't have did it, man. But that's the fight game. All it takes is one shot.
Yeah, that's well, you were in Vegas. That's a bit of a gamble. And yeah. Obviously that one didn't pay off. But I appreciate you sharing it because it's,
yeah.
Hamby, it's the world. I mean, we've done this before, right? With
losses,
like it's the I don't know. I just have such tremendous respect for the old enter the arena. It's one of the great quotes of all time. You can put it on your wall. You can put it on a poster, but it's so true. And I don't know if anything says it like this sport, man. I don't know. I try to send Austin a bit of a text like on the morning of or something and then try to stay out of his way. But I almost want to be like, hey, man, it doesn't matter what happens, But you don't want to put that in your mind because
for sure.
it's just the respect to enter the arena. And for everybody does it. We just happen to know you. So, but Hamby, it's a crazy sport, man. But it's also sports. Like that's sports. Like that's I'll say this. I said this since your careers parallel Tim Tebow's. I was going all the way back to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama.
They may parallel now. They don't parallel really in the Wonderlic test where I beat him by a point, but everything else it parallels pretty well. Yeah. I do say this, like I always bring this back to Tebow in a sense when I say this enter the arena thing because, I have a lot of respect for Tim to be able to go to the sport of baseball, which is a sport of failure, and give it a try with his status, right, with his stardom, and then do the same thing in the NFL. While a lot of people look at that as like, oh, he got this opportunity and Urban gave him the opportunity. Yeah, I get it. There's some of that. Yeah. But he also put himself in a situation twice on the grandest of stages, because any stage he's on is the grandest of stages, to fail in front of people, right? Yeah. So I do admire that about Tim because, first of all, baseball was going to be really hard to make work. Like for even if you've done it all your life, it's really hard to make work. And then to switch positions at the age he did for the tight end stuff, and again, you can be bothered by it, but he actually put himself out there to be criticized, fail, cut, all those things, right? So, Hamby has just a tremendous amount of respect for that part of it, and that to me that ties into kind of what Austin does. The bottom line is, if
there's the glory, and then there's that part of it on a Saturday night in Las Vegas that can't happen. But you got to be able to, you got to be willing to do it, put the work in to enter it, and you got to be willing to deal with it. And that's one thing Austen does a tremendous job of dealing it, whether it's dad or even talking about it here. So we appreciate him for that.
No, you're good, man. And I'll just kind of, and I'll say this one last part about it too, because obviously, I have close friends who are worried about my psyche and worried about like what I see online and everything. And then I always tell them the same thing, and I wish they would, eventually believe me. It's supposed to be my friends, but maybe one day they will. Like this, the sport of MMA, man, it's different because when you have critics in MMA and when you have people that want to say things, very rarely are those people actually have stepped in a cage before, so they know what it is. Like you have like haters in football all the time that want to say something, call it a player. Me kind of like with Daniel Jones all the time. You want to call it a player and you want to poke fun and everything, but even like the casual person that does that, they probably played either flag football, they maybe played high school football. Like there's some grounds to do it. With fighting, it's different. A lot of people haven't stepped in the cage and felt what it's like and knows what it takes to actually get in there. But I guess that's not really the point that I'm trying to say. Like the point that I'm trying to say is I don't care what those people have to say, because I've gotten so much out of MMA where I'll pay the price 10 times over 10 times just because I think MMA has made me a better person. It's made me a lot more patient. It's made me a lot more understanding of what's important in life and what's not. It's humbled me many times, which has been a benefit to me. And I owe the sport a lot. Probably even more than football. And I played football a lot longer than MMA, right? But I owe that sport a lot. So when we talk about like what it's given me, then yeah, man, if it means that every once in a while I'll be on television and I'll get knocked out and people say something about it and I'll become a meme, that's okay, man. Because at the end of the day, I'll come out the other side and I'll be a better person for having gone through it. So all those out there that are trying to defend me and there's some, dude, don't worry about the haters out there. Don't worry about people that got to say something. Like, 'cause I'm not, and I wish I could be. I wish I was more emotional. I could pop off some tweets and go Kendrick Lamar and everybody and do that whole thing, but
Christian Kirk.
I don't got to, man. Right? Yeah, Christian Kirk, maybe a little Trevor Lawrence keeping notes and everything. I wish I could do that, but I can't, man. And it's not how I'm wired. It's not how I was raised, and it's not what I'm about. So I'll keep rolling with this journey as long as I can until someone tells me I can't do it anymore. But until that time, man, it's all systems go.
Right, I'll say this
Hamby,
real quick.
You're just kind of new. You're new to this world. I'll let you get your thoughts in here in a second. But just coming off that, I mean, that's been a big growth period too, right? Austin, coming back from starting this back in 2016 to that, so that's a big growth period. And Hamby, I'll tell you this, so you can have the mic here a little bit on this topic. But I actually. I don't know if Austen, like I stayed off social media after it. Like I saw it all, in the past, right?
I saw it all.
I'm like, no, I'm not, because I know where then I'll start going.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not getting into this. Yeah. It happens to all of us. Hamby, what you got?
Yeah, I think I have an insane love-hate relationship with this whole thing, and it just goes way beyond winning and losing.
You're not alone.
Winning and losing, because, like, well, just from a blanket statement, like, I love watching, Austin, I love watching you do your thing. Like, there's something, when you get to watch somebody who you can actually say they're in their element, that's a really fun spot to be in. And obviously, the deeper your relationship is with that person, the more fun that is to watch, right? So obviously for your son and everybody like that, but I'm just getting in there, I'm, watching you walk out, watching you get in the cage, I'm like, that he's in his element, and regardless, sometimes you can have a really good relationship with somebody and you never really even get to see that. So for you to be able to, you to be able to pinpoint, like, all right, that's it. That's where he's supposed to be. That's what he's supposed to be doing, and he's in his zone. Like, that's a cool thing in and of itself. I do wish you were 135 pounds, so that whoever's kind of gets off to the best start, who has the best game plan, whoever puts in the most work and trains the best, is actually going to win the fight. Because holy cow,
that's well said.
That is well said. Yes.
Just like cut half your weight. Maybe be 5'6", 135.
Could you imagine me on the show? Hey, Brent, could you imagine me on the show, like trying to cut like 50 pounds like in a week before my fight, trying to come on and talk about Trent Baalke and Brent trying to talk about, the Dallas Cowboys and stuff.
I'd have to have
you're talking about Kirk Cousins,
the
Hamby.
mute.
Listen, you'd be our Players Championship expert next week, most likely.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But and then on the social media front, though, I did look at it because I wanted to see, like, if I had to guess, what percentage of these are just people that are mad because they threw money on it? And I was like, dude, this has got to be like 90% of the people who just saw, oh my gosh, it's an underdog, and I recognize the name, and if I recognize the name and it's an underdog, I should put my rent on it. They end up being disappointed, so then they got to have a lot of stuff to say. And I was just curious to see what that was, and it was very high.
Well, yeah, and and this kind of relates to a little bit. We talked about this before on the show, Hamby, and Brent, feel free to chime in as well. This is why, I think I was more critical of Trevor Lawrence when he had the receipts. This is why I was more critical of Christian Kirk than pretty much everybody else was. And this is why it rubbed me the wrong way, right? And I get it's a new generation. I'm old school, right? So it's hard for me to relate sometimes, I feel like, to the modern NFL player. But I always felt like it's one thing if you're peers. It'd be one thing if, like, a guy that I trained with or a guy that I fought against was coming out and talking smack, right? That's one thing. Somebody that I respect. It's another thing when you have 25 numbers in your Twitter handle and you don't have a picture. I don't know who you are, and with all due respect, but I don't care who you are, right? And it doesn't matter who you are. So when they say something like that, and I trust me, I've seen it all. But when they say something like that, the only way, in my eyes at least, that they win is if I respond and I actually let it affect me. I mean, there's two options there. When someone talks smack to you on the internet, right? Because sometimes we got to say the internet's not even real. But when someone talks smack to you on the internet, you have two things to do. You want to respond, you want to retaliate, you want to give them all your energy and your time and your effort, or you just say, okay, no, it's the internet. That's what happens sometimes. And you just go on with your life. And that's what I chose to do. And that's why it rubs me the wrong way sometimes when some players choose to be like, you know what? This random person that I don't even know that has 25 numbers in their name, I got to respond back to them. I got to stick up for myself because they crossed the line. That's what they want. And that's how you lose. So that's why, and maybe it's not right because, once again, it's the modern NFL or modern athlete. But this is why, Hamby, I'm so critical all the time of these professional athletes, especially the Jacksonville Jaguars, that want to clap back at some of these people. Yes, it's one thing if it's one thing if the Houston Texan player is saying something, then by all means, man, let's go to war, right? Then let's get the diss tracks underway. It's another thing when that person you don't even know and doesn't even matter, right? And that's why I like to see people just focus on the task at hand, not get bogged down, not get distracted by people's opinions who don't matter. But I understand not everyone's built like that, and I have to be more understanding to that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, whether we're having an argument about something on football or something bigger like this in your profession and what you do, I will say this: it could have been worse. But we should send a big thank you to John Cena, because that night, like, all I really saw on social media was like John Cena. Like, I was like, what the hell is going on?
My son was in tears, by the way. Yeah, imagine that. Seeing your dad lose and then seeing one of your heroes of like your entire existence turn his back on Cody Rhodes. Unreal.
Oh, that was awesome, though. I was watching live.
I did see what happened, but you were watching it live, huh? Did you get a chance to catch up on that, Austin? And tease the Scrap House tomorrow night at 7:00.
Yeah. I definitely caught up on it, Brent. And it was funny too because so me and my son, we watched it, like the next day, kind of the next morning, and I didn't see I heard what happened a little bit, but I didn't know like he actually turned fully heel. I just heard that John Cena won the Elimination Chamber match. He's going to WrestleMania. I didn't know exactly what happened after it. So me and my son are watching it. And like they're teasing like he's gonna turn heel. My son's like, "Is John Cena gonna be bad?" I'm like, "There's no way, man. Like he has the most Make-A-Wish, grants ever. Like he's the face. Like they always had a deal where John Cena would be good from the time that he started to the time that he ended." And then he kicks Cody Rhodes in the cojones, and my son absolutely lost it. And I was in shock because he's got nicely done, Hamby. Yeah, I didn't see it happening, man. And like this is, I mean, in terms of, and once again, I get it's not really a wrestling show, but I think like this kind of reaches the emphasis of pop culture because John Cena is such a big name. And he's always been the good guy. I mean, this is right up there with one of the crazy, I won't say the greatest, but one of the craziest moments, I think, in wrestling history.
This hustle, disloyalty, disrespect.
Hamby tweeted about it like, I'm going to get back into watching.
Oh, I'm in.
Break a wish. I mean, that's where we're at
Break
now.
a wish, baby. Okay, not for the faint of heart for everybody, but some of the memes about what John Cena, in WWE, when everybody's getting hit with chairs and this and that, with what he's going to do now that he's a bad guy with Make-A-Wish kids are the best memes on the internet.
It's absolutely insane.
Or the worst.
It's insane just because like you thought like he was untouchable, just because like in terms of merchandise sales, in terms of like every kid being infatuated with him, to go ahead and be Triple H, who is the owner, the CEO of WWE, and to pull that trigger and say, you know what, whatever 20 plus years of John Cena being every kid's hero, let's just go ahead and crush their dreams tonight. It's wild how that all transpired.
He turned heel before LeBron James retired.
Yeah.
More Scrap House tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Austen Lane and Casey Kurtz will probably have a big breakdown of that as the wrestling world went nuts.
It's going to be crazy.
Over the weekend. That was wild. It was everywhere. I was like, what is going on here? I don't even know what's happening. All right. That was the most serious 30 minutes of the year right there on the Brent and Austin show, along with Jason Hamby. So let's come back and talk a little football on the other side. The NFL Combine's in the books. A lot of things coming out of the Combine now. Where do the Jags go? We'll get Austin's thoughts on a lot of this because he was in fight camp, so he didn't talk a bunch about it during the Combine last week. So let's do this. Take a break. Brent and Austin show on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network, and here are the dates. Now, today's franchise tag deadline. We don't anticipate that being used. It wouldn't make much sense. But then next week, free agency begins. The league year begins. And then we've got NFL league meetings and workouts and everything else. It's pretty wild 2 months now in the NFL as they have their own little sense of March Madness. We'll be right back. When it's time to get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway or shop online at NimnickBuickGMC.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness, and most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick. GMC. We are professional grade.
2024 provided plenty of memorable moments for the Jacksonville Armada on the pitch, including another conference championship game appearance for Tommy Krasanovich's under-23 men's team.
They sit in the dying moments.
Debuting this year for the first time, the girls in blue, as the Armada fielded a women's under-23 side in the WPSL and made its presence known with some highlight moments.
Potential goal of the season.
Then attention turned to the future, with MLS Next teams representing the Armada badge in 3 age divisions this fall, including an under-19 squad ranking among the best in the state. Those teams are a big focus on Fleet and Footy, covering the big soccer stories each week on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
I'll put one in the back of the net for you.
Join us for player profiles, fun interviews, and the very latest on the Fleet and all things footy. That's every Thursday at 2 p.m.
I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants. We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning, and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter. Right now, you can save $500 on a Kinetico Premier Softener and get a free Kinect Salt Monitor with purchase. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Kinetico water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Kinetico dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
There's a saying in sports, you can't win them all, but you can win a lot with good folks on your team. Like that one painter, First Coast. It's tough to beat the sun in Florida, so your home fades. It's tough to beat that HOA when they come calling. Beat the sun, beat the HOA with that one painter, First Coast. And it's a good time to do it. Less rain to work around, and painting in mild temperatures is perfect. After all, the paint bonds to the surface so much better. Give that one painter First Coast a call at 904-417-3557 or look them up at first-coast.thatonepainter.com. Fast estimate, guidance on color and HOA requirements, and the highest quality job you'll find anywhere. Be a big winner in your neighborhood with that one painter First Coast on your team.
When it comes to trucks, I know exactly what I want. And at Bozard Ford, they make it easy to get exactly that. Let's go make this truck a little more my style. With Bozard Built, I can create my perfect truck right here. Lift kit? Check. Premium wheels? You bet. Advanced lighting package? Oh yeah. The Bozard team works their magic. From bumper to tailgate, I'm making this truck mine. It's everything that I wanted and more. From the field to the gym to weekend adventures. This truck's built for my journey. Bozard Built. Customized for your lifestyle, built to exceed your expectations. Check out the inventory and available options at bozardbuilt.com. Unleash your dream ride. Customized, covered, and Bozard approved.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austin Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Well, what do we got? The top 5 40-yard dashers. Oh, we broke 4.30. There we go. What does it mean? Did they jump up your boards big time? I think there was a wager I saw. Would there be between 4.20 and 4.29? And I guess that answer is yes. I did not know going in if we would get that. I didn't know the buzz on some of these guys like Kirsten and Golden. But how about Matthew Golden there? That's a name that people know, I think, pretty well. And I did not realize he would run that fast. That will climb up some boards, Austen Lane, right there when you run a 4.29.
Yeah. If you want to talk about like a guy that I'm excited for, in terms of like that got my attention for the Jaguars, it's him. Not because I think he's going to go to the Jaguars the first round, but I think he's a guy that could really help out a lot. You know, we talk about Matthew Golden. He was a guy that you read about him. It's all about route running, right? Fast, shifty, but like he was touted as like this giant, this impeccable route runner. And then you mix that with a 4.2, I mean, you got route running and speed. You know, like you see what they did in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, right? And Chris Godwin was kind of like the slot guy, the shifty guy. Well, I see like Brian Thomas Jr. as even like a Mike Evans on steroids. Then you get Golden, who's like the Chris Godwin. Imagine what Liam Cohen could do with that. So like of all the athletes at the combine, Brent, Golden was the one where it got my attention where it's like, wow. If the Jaguars pull the trigger on him, that could be fun.
That's interesting. Hamby, I know you're a big draft Nick here. What'd you take out of the combine, especially the speeds run or maybe even what Austin just said about Golden there?
Well, real quick, I mean, before we get to the fastest 40 times, if you say you're going to run a 4.2 and you run a 4.41, we need to hear from you. You're not even the fastest receiver on your team, Isaiah Bond.
Get him, Hamby.
Jadon Blue, both of you guys, all the Texas guys. Oh, I'm going to run a 4.2. I think Xavier Worthy had something to say about that. You can't run 4.41, which is a great time, but a whole 0.2.
It's awesome.
A whole 0.2 slower and act like, yeah, it's a good time. Like, let's go. Obviously, to get back to who we just was it Isaiah Bond and Golden was the scariest guy as far as Georgia when we played him twice in the SEC championship. Bond was the more sure thing. He's going to get his yards, but if you can stop Golden, because he's the kind of guy who's going to run right by you, and you're just going to you think you're going to have that catch up speed. And he's going to have the ball and he's running. It reminds me of the BTJ play against the Colts. Golden didn't do that to the Dogs, but he did that to a couple of teams, it seems like. There's a lot of combine darlings, guys that are rising up the boards, guys that, holy cow, where did this guy come from? And now all of Twitter's talking about him. And now he's getting mocked to the Jaguars a bunch. So I don't know if you guys want to go on down the list, but there's a lot of storylines coming out. The one that I would love to, before we get to the Jags, real quick, Tez Johnson weighs in at 154 pounds. 154 pounds. What does that do to his stock? Should it do anything? Because everybody who won him should already have known that, and tape speaks for itself.
Yeah. But also, Hamby, didn't Tez Johnson, he had a bad combine, like a 4.5, right?
It wasn't great.
So a guy that size, right? Tez Johnson from Oregon, a guy that size, you expect him to be shifty. You expect him to run like a 4.3, at least a 4.4. And if I'm not mistaken, he didn't do that. So his draft stock dropped significantly. But once again, I'm not mad at that, because what are you asking Tez Johnson to do? You're asking him to be in the slot, right? Like, that's the only place you're going to put him. And if that's the case, I don't need my slot receivers to run 4.4, 4.3s. Like, if you're a 4.5 guy, but you're a great route runner, we can work with that. Now, size is going to be an issue, right? Because how many hits can he really take? But like, I'm not going to sleep on Tez Johnson yet, just because, he weighed in a little light or he had a bad 40 time. If anything, if he drops to the, 4th, 5th round, hey, Jacksonville, let's take a look at him.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's 154 pounds.
I know.
Doesn't do much for
it's tiny.
me. Like,
it's
listen,
tiny.
I got a 154 pounder, man. I definitely lean toward the little guys. All right, and I mean, but as a football guy, I bring this guy up all the time, man. Remember, we always do this, and the guys in the chat will know this. I think Weatherspoon was his name, Witherspoon or Weatherspoon, and he was a return man, and he was right about the time you came out, Austin. Okay. I don't know if he was right in that mix, but it was a light cornerback, but really a special teams guy, and he could fly, right? Whatever could fly as at that time. He was like a track star, but he did play football too. Probably it was a Gene Smith thing, so some Division III school or
Brian
NAIA school most likely, but. Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I remember just seeing him in we were talking about oh, this guy's gonna be good, like on a kickoff return and everything else, and those are the old kickoff return rules. And it just was like nothing. It was almost just like a gust of wind blew and he'd go down. Like, which is unfair. That's not really what happened. But like that's what when I see a guy that's that small in the NFL, I mean, in a big man's game, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Like I always say this about Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is shifty, to your point, and fast and everything else. I think people sleep on his physical presence. Like, he's not tall, but he's pretty thick, man. I mean, like, he can handle some hits, even if you are able to hit him, or he can shake that first guy who's trying to tackle him a little bit. So, like, you need to have an element of that. You can't just be able to run fast. If you could just run fast and just put track guys out there and say, hey, go play in the NFL. That's not the case. We're not talking about stealing bases in Major League Baseball, right? This is a big difference. So, those guys, I mean, that's those are red flags right off the rip.
No, listen, I understand he's a red flag, man. Selfishly, I want the Jaguars to get him so then maybe my son can become a Jaguars fan again because
Oh,
he's a
yeah.
Liam
That's
player.
boring.
But then selfishly, I don't want the Jaguars to get him because I feel like if they do get him, they're going to bring on Brent Martineau as like his weight specialist because Brent knows how to put some pounds on. He did it with Ty, and,
Yeah, that's right.
and all of a sudden Brent's going to be forcing Whataburger milkshakes down his throat every single day. But maybe that's what you got to do.
It's true. I've got whatever it takes. I've got the blueprint now, by the way. We've jumped into the creatine world, too, here at the Martineau household.
Buckle up for that one, Brent.
Yeah, here we go.
Here
Plenty of
comes
water.
that water weight. I like it.
So, hey, we can go down a bunch of guys from Travis Hunter to Mason Graham and everything else, and I think we're going to talk about these guys a lot. I think Travis Hunter continues to be very intriguing to me in a lot of different ways.
Shock your mock season coming up.
Shock your mock season is just about here. But really, as it pertains to the Jags, I really feel like one of the things that came out of this draft, this combine, and again, some give credit to some folks like John Shipley, who spent the week there and is getting some sources and quotes if you read his article, and some other folks. Just general the conversation coming out of the combine is actually a conversation that we have had on this show before, and I think we bypass it because it's really not a sexy play at all for the Jags. Could they go get Travis Hunter? I'm cool with that. Could they go get Ted McMillan? I'm cool with that. That sounds a lot of fun, right? Could they go get Mason Graham and someone on the interior? Makes a lot of sense, certainly. Could they go get another cornerback? Makes a lot of sense. We know where it is. As Liam Cohen said, you guys know where the voids are. Well, contractually, the voids are not on the offensive line. Coming out of this draft, it feels like, oh, okay, people are going to now add up the tea leaves of what this looks like. Liam Cohen talks offensive line and running game. Tony Baselli is an offensive lineman, talks big guys. I get it. You can have a big guy in the defensive line, but all we talk about in Jacksonville for years and years and years and around the league is where the Jags offensive line is compared to everybody else. I don't think it's one of the worst offensive lines in the league, but it certainly could be a lot better. Jags couldn't get 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 for the last 3 years. Was really that Doug Peterson's problem, or is that an offensive line's problem that couldn't move people for about a 3-year run, even though they did some things well? I think the biggest talker coming out of this combine from a Jags-related standpoint is, wait a minute now, this common sense could be go get an offensive lineman, start stacking them up right in the trenches there. I think the big thing is it's really hard to say where do you play a guy right now on the offensive line. But, hey, you get the players and you make them work. If you guys believe in that, Austin and Jason, then offensive line makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, man, it does make a lot of sense, Brent, and I get it. You start in the trenches, you work your way out, right? Especially with Liam Cohen, like that calling card of that Buccaneers offense last year. Like, yeah, you had Mike Evans, you had Chris Godwin. They both got hurt. You had Baker Mayfield, and he's an okay quarterback. But like Bucky Irving and that offensive line really put Liam Cohen, in my opinion, on the map. So I understand the narrative of, okay, offensive line is going to be there. The issue, though, is that I have recency bias. And I saw what happened when you drafted a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round. I saw what a difference it made to your team. And then I saw a guy like Anton Harrison, who we were still very hopeful, but I saw like, yeah, he contributed and he had a great rookie year. Second year was just okay. But the impact was felt so much more by a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. than offensive lineman. And I think when we start going down this road of, do you shore up the trenches on the offensive side of the ball? I think people might have a little remorse just because it's like, well, is that going to have a direct effect right away to turn this team around?
I think a lot of people especially Jags fan base, learned who Armand Mimbu is over the weekend. It started because he was the biggest offensive lineman who was screaming all the way down his 40, and it worked because he ran a 4.91 at 325 pounds, which we glance over.
Impressive. But
that is insane. And I think they threw up there's been 4 players in the last 20-something years that have offensive linemen that are over 300 pounds, have ran sub 5 and jumped over 30-inch vertical. Trent Williams, Tristan Wirfs, Will Campbell in this year's draft, and Armand Mimbu. So 4 guys in the last 20-something years who have all done those things. So that's great company. And, this guy was already a first-round grade. Now he runs that and does what he did as far as the metrics. So he's been skyrocketing mock drafts, and everybody's like, well, could he be the first lineman taken? And I've already seen a couple of mocks with the Jaguars taking him at number 5.
Well, by the way, my first reaction to this guy, and again, big guy, obviously very athletic guy, and I'm like, well, there's nothing more than I need for the Jacksonville Jaguars offense and a guy in the trenches to be able to have a big vertical in a fast 40, man. Like, nothing else. I mean, it's like, that's the first thing that enters my mind. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, he's 332 pounds and he can do that. Like, I saw somebody say he went 20 point something miles per hour last year or this time, whatever it was. He was like, that's like Tyreek Hill did that when he beat Andre Sisco on the 80-yard play. It was like the same time or same miles per hour. Those are all cool things, but my offensive lineman doesn't need to show off his vertical ever or his 40-yard time ever.
Yeah.
So,
what is he doing? Is he chasing interceptions down the line? Like, I hope not.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
I guess he get to the next level. But Andy actually brings up a really good point now. You want to put those kind of metrics in with that kind of talent, then now you start to talk and you're like, wait a minute. You mentioned those guys. Those guys are franchise guys. Those guys are Hall of Fame guys. So, again, this is a very interesting time for the Jags. How many guys are they going to keep over the next week? The next week is huge. I don't think people are talking about it enough. Are they going to make a surprise cut somewhere? Are they going to make a trade somewhere? What does this roster look like? Does it open the door for something like this somehow, some way, shape, and form? The other thing is, how much do the Jags have their eyes on right now, which it looks like they will because they have a window with their quarterback. They're paying a bunch, and they have a lot of people on this roster that we think can play much better football than 4 wins. But how much will this new regime also have their eyes on tomorrow and 3 years and 5 years and 10 years down the road? Is this where you start to compile franchise cornerstone players because you are picking number 5? So piece of the puzzle, like maybe a Will Johnson or a Travis Hunter or a Ted McMillan, or cornerstone, no doubt guys that you think are going to be here for 12 years and going to be a perennial Pro Bowl, all-pro, get you into the Hall of Fame. That's what you try to do when you pick in the top 5. So it's an interesting dance right now with this new Jaguars brass and how they're going to approach this. I think this guy, or Campbell, or whoever you want to say, the offensive line in general, will really tell us a lot about how they're looking at that big picture.
Brent, let me ask you this, though, right? Because this is an important draft for a couple of reasons, right? But this is really the introduction now of a new GM and, and as a new EVP in Tony Baselli. How much pressure is it if you draft an offensive lineman in the first round, especially this is more on Tony Baselli, I feel like, than anybody, but how much pressure is it if you're Tony Baselli, you're a Hall of Famer, dude, you know what good tackle play is. And if you get a guy and he doesn't like blow your socks off right away, I mean, what's that narrative going to be then? Right? Like, I feel like a guy like Mason Graham, and I get it, there's no sure thing in the NFL draft. I understand that. But everyone's saying, like, all right, Mason Graham's going to be the guy. Mason's going to be the guy. And I get it. And maybe this offensive tackle from Mizzou might be the guy as well. But I think there's a lot more pressure taking offensive linemen, especially when you don't really necessarily have to in the first round. And if he doesn't, live up to that hype, to that 4.9, whatever the case may be, all those athletic tangibles and the names that Hamby mentioned with Tristan Wirfs and company, how much pressure is it then if you miss on that? What's that narrative going to be?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And here's the other thing. Let's just get this out of the way right now. We're going to have a million discussions about this over the next 7 weeks. But especially when we start doing Shock Your Mock and we see people put this in, are they willing to put an offensive lineman in? I mean, it's the number one complaint of a fan base is the offensive line every time. But the other thing that you just said is, wait a minute. Tony Baselli's not necessarily supposed to be the guy picking the players, right? This is supposed to be James Gladstone and Liam Cohen-centric. So if you go pick offensive line, I get that he's in the building. I get that he's the EVP, but he's also in charge of a bunch of different things. He's not necessarily the guy shopping for groceries here. He's part of the conversation, at least that we think. So if it says offensive line, right, if offensive line was where the Jags were to go here, which I think, again, there's a little momentum coming out of this combine, that's why we're having this story, then does that mean Tony Baselli really has a lot more sway?
He has, because Brent, let's call a spade here. If they draft an offensive lineman in the first round, Gladstone, Cohen both go to Tony Baselli and say, hey, what do you think about this guy? and he gives it the stamp of approval. If Tony goes, you know what, like, yeah, he's good, I wouldn't draft him there. I have a hard time believing then that Cohen and Gladstone would go, okay, well, a Hall of Fame offensive tackle, first pick in Jaguars history goes, I'm not quite sure about this guy. Yeah, let's draft him anyways. Like, I have a hard time believing that's going to be the narrative.
Yeah, that's fair. And listen, here's the deal. Part of the reason why these guys are all together, especially Baselli and Cohen, and they have not been afraid to say this, is that they think the same way. They philosophically look at football the same way. Baselli has said that a million times already. So it doesn't necessarily mean just him. This could totally be Liam Cohen saying, hey, this is what we need. This is what we need to get our run game going, right? This is what we want to do. This is what we're going to be. And then it could be Gladstone at 34 years old taking a bigger picture look at, like, hey, we're going to be good here for 10 years. They did have Tristan Wirfs in Tampa for Cohen, and they know what that looks like. And by the way, the Rams have gone against Trent Williams in that NFC West for years and years. So, again, if you find that kind of player, I just think it's pretty interesting coming out of the combine. I don't know if it's just a Jacksonville thing that we weren't talking about offensive linemen much. Not everybody was talking about it, even in this draft. So much so that it doesn't feel like the offensive lineman, offensive tackle is going to get shoved up the board much here. And so if that is the case, could you even trade back and still get a guy, Campbell or this kid from Missouri as well? We'll see. So we're not going to let the offensive line conversation go. In fact, that is the topic of Daniel Griffiths' article today on actionsportsjacks.com. But let's do is take a time out. We come back. We'll talk about that article. He brings up Walker Little. What he has to say about Walker Little, because Walker Little is a huge part of this. If Walker Little does not get extended, we'd be all over offensive line in Jacksonville. But the extension of Walker Little changed the way we kind of view things, because you're like, okay, you've got that piece. We want a piece that can play right now, that can make a difference right now. Well, if they were to go offensive lineman, could that even happen? What about Walker Little here in Jacksonville as well? I still think he's a very interesting conversation, and he's the topic of conversation when we come back on That One Painter First Coast. Paint the player. In terms of Walker Little on the Brent Martineau Austen Show on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. Hey, good job by JU. They get it done yesterday in the quarters at home at Swisher Gymnasium. They rally from 11 down to win the game by 11. Robert McCray, a double-double. He's really fun to watch. And now they got to go on the road and get a win and then another win. They're 2 wins away from the NCAA tournament now. Can JU finally do it? Could they go back to the dance for the first time since 1986? It's amazing it's been that long. But with highlights like that, they might have a chance. A veteran group that can beat you even on the road, and that defense will travel. A-Sun continues this week. They'll play on Thursday. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
For the game day hustle and every day in between. Juggling my show, Jags Social, to going under the Friday night lights and a social life, it's a daily tournament. But this ride, MVP status. The all-new 2024 Lincoln Nautilus isn't just my car, it's my personal locker room, office on the go, and VIP lounge on wheels. Let's talk tech. My profile remembers everything from customizing my dash display to setting the ambient lighting and my signature scent. And wireless charging, essential for live tweeting scores. Whether I'm packing for a beach day with friends or heading to the gym, there's space for every passion. After dominating all day, this becomes my recovery zone. The massage feature is like having a personal PT on call. Life's a non-stop game, but with this ride, I'm always on my A game. The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. Drive your passion.
You trust CGC to make your water great, and now you can trust CGC with your plumbing needs as well. Fast, convenient scheduling, licensed and insured. A quick call away at 904-552-1242.
You never know when you're going to have an issue with a shower, toilet, or maybe it's a sink that sometimes is easy to fix. All right, let's be honest. I'm not fixing anything. I'm totally staging this because when I have a plumbing problem, I call CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing.
Trained professionals, transparent pricing, customer satisfaction. Small problem or even a bigger issue. Right now, you can take 10% off any water heater. The experts with 25 years of experience at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing can do it all. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. For a limited time, CGC is waiving the trip charge on all related plumbing calls. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579. It's the place we party in football season with Jaguars All Access. Welcome to String Sports Brewery, everybody. Hello to our guest tonight. That is Trevor Lawrence. You can bring your party or event to String Sports Brewery in Springfield any day and any time. Rehearsal dinners, corporate events, birthdays. Here at Strings, you can enjoy the inside area and the outside area. Good for any weather, good for any occasion. Watch the games, play the games, shoot some hoops. Beer? Yeah, they have that. Plenty of choices. And sure, this is a brewery, but Strings is also a restaurant, and the food is fantastic. A full menu made from scratch meals. And if you need String Sports Brewery to help with a party at your place, they cater too. Family, beer, food, sports. Spring Sports Brewery in Springfield.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austin Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Walker Little. Remember he got extended just at the, what was that, December, November? It was after, that's right. It was after the Detroit game. Loss. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how could we forget that he got extended in that moment? Unbelievable. Hey, listen, I shouldn't say it like that. That's bad. Because I shouldn't say unbelievable, but not the Walker Little signing. It was that whole stretch, right? It was that 2 weeks. I want to start this whole conversation with, if you listen to our show for a while, like, I'm a Walker Little defender. Like, I like Walker Little. I actually think at many times he's been a little bit hosed by the organization. Given where he was picked, what he was asked to do, what he was asked to play, how he got stuck behind people. Like, he was that third guy. Now, listen, that third swing tackle, it was very valuable for the Jags in that stretch for Trent Baalke, but he was that pawn in the game in a sense, and I don't think that's great for him, but it actually rewarded him nicely, and the Jags, by the way, are sitting on a pretty nice deal for Walker Little. Like, the deal is not insane by left tackle standards, so it gives them a couple of years of play and gives him a chance to grow even more. I just think the whole question we had is we didn't think Trent Baalke was coming back. Now, it turns out Shad Khan was the folks that, that whiteboard narrative stuff, and the folks that said, hey, this is an indicator that Trent Baalke is coming back. I didn't believe it, but they were right. That was an indicator Trent Baalke was coming back. Like, he was still running the organization and kind of looking down the road. And I just couldn't believe it that he was. It didn't make any sense to me. But Shad signed off on that. And my whole point at the time was, listen, if you have a GM change, I think you could line up 10 GMs, and I think half of them would be like, yeah, I like this. This is a good move. And the other half would be like, no, we've got to improve here. And what we really don't know, because they would never answer this question right now, but the draft may indicate it, is how does this regime feel about it? Now that we've settled here, and this is a signing in December, and does this regime, meaning Tony Boselli, Liam Cohen, and James Gladstone, feel the way Trent Baalke did? Do they like this deal? Do they think he can play and they can elevate their offensive line with Walker Little? So, Austin, that's like the backstory of Walker Little. This is not like Brent Hayden on Walker Little. In fact, I've defended him a lot. Like, I think he's a good player. Now, unfortunately for him, he signs the deal and he got hurt the last few weeks too. He does have to stay healthy, but I think he is a good talent. And what we just don't know, if he just could slide into that spot and know that he's got that spot, he could settle in, work on his craft, and at least from a I don't know if you want to be comfortable, but from a mentality standpoint, at least feel a little bit different than he's felt his entire NFL career.
Yeah, I mean, despite what the timing was of him getting paid, I think he got paid, once again, to take after the Lions game out of it, but he got paid because I think there is some intrigue of what he could do for this franchise, right? Like, I refuse to believe this is just a bargaining chip from Trent Baalke to go like, well, look, I re-signed this guy, so like you got to keep me now. Like, if that's the case, man, and that's the only reason why he kept his job for as long as he did, then more power to you. But I fail to believe that part of it, Brent. So I think there is some stuff to like about Walker Little. And yes, you have been a big advocate. And I don't think I've been as strong as you have in terms of the potential, but I do agree, like, he hasn't really got a fair shake because he's been asked to do a lot of things that he should have been asked to do, right? Like, they had him playing guard for a little bit, and where he was drafted, like, he should have been solidified as, a go-to tackle. And that never came to fruition. So we're going to find out really quick, right, in this draft, exactly how they feel about Walker Little. And keep in mind, Tony Boselli wasn't, in his role last year. Liam Cohen wasn't the coach last year. Gladstone wasn't the GM last year. So they owe Walker Little nothing, right? Like, people can maybe say, oh, they got an offensive tackle. What about Walker Little? That doesn't matter. Like, they could care less. They're going to have their own guys in there. So it's going to be very telling, in the first and second round, in terms of if you draft a tackle, well, it tells all you need to know right there. If they don't draft a tackle, or if they somehow, ship Walker Little off, then, we'll see. But for the time being, as far as I'm concerned, I think he's going to be a starting left tackle.
Well, let's bring up Daniel Griffiths' article a little bit. He gets in the weeds, and I won't share the whole article. You can find it at actionsportsjacks.com. Daniel contributes to the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network, the Brent and Austen Show specifically, and it's good timing for him to write about this coming out of the Combine, where I thought offensive line got a little bit of steam. By the way, this is presented by That One Painter First Coast. This is paint the play or paint the player, in this case, in Walker Little. And 4.1% pressure rate, by the way. 13 pressures on 316 pass block snaps. That is ranked 18th among 68 qualifying tackles, 8th among those on the left side. That's pretty good, Austin. Like, that'll really put you right. That'll put you right in the spot where you want to be. And by the way, keep in mind, he replaced Cam Robinson, and there's a lot of, I don't know about Cam. I don't think people are sad that Cam moved on necessarily, I guess is my point, even though I thought he had some good years too and is a good player. I just don't think he ever kind of proved that he was a great player. One other set of numbers, without getting too engaged in the numbers, his previous seasons, a lot of pressure rate of 5.9% in 2023 and 9.6% in 2022. But of course, as we've noted, he didn't really have a true position at the time, too, and it wasn't getting consistent playing time. He also mentions in the article, Edmund Ezra Cleveland rank among ESPN Analytics top 10 run blockers at their given position. So that left side necessarily isn't the problem, Austin. So if you look at some of these things, you're like, hey, Walker Little, can you get him better? And I go back to James Gladstone at the Combine last week when he talked to us, and I asked him specifically about the offensive line. Like, listen, you're contractually obligated, man. What are you going to do? You're going to eat dead money? Just ask them point blank. You're going to eat dead money there? Or are you going to, try to get the best out of these guys? And he said, he's not a tear it down guy. He's a build it up guy. And these guys have their positions. We have these guys, is what he said. So it's our job to make the most out of them. So can scheme alone help you that much more? And Austin, you played the game on the other side, and you played a position in pass rush where I'm not sure scheme impacts too much, but how about from an offensive tackle standpoint or an offensive lineman standpoint? I guess my question is, how much does it impact what they're trying to do with a run scheme, a blocking scheme, and could it accentuate some more of the positives that Walker Little brings to the table?
Yeah, so it's wild, Brent. Even a position coach can make the biggest difference ever. Like I've said this many times in the show before, like, I had Joe Cullen first, and I think he kind of set a decent foundation for me. But it wasn't really until I got to Chicago and like I worked with, Clint Hurt, who was, I don't know if he's still the defensive coordinator now in Seattle. Oh, I'm sorry, no, Clint Hurt was actually in Philly. Clint Hurt is a defensive, I think, strategist or a specialist in Philly now. But it wasn't until I worked with him. I worked with Joe Kim, who was the pass rush specialist in Chicago as well. I worked with Aaron Campman a lot, Tom Bali a lot, where I really learned what it meant to be a pass rusher and how to go about your craft. They just, for whatever reason, their way of teaching things, it just got through to me, right? So it goes to show you just, sometimes it's a change of scenery. Sometimes it's a different environment. Sometimes it's just a different coach can bring the best out of you. And then when you couple that with a scheme, when you couple that with great quarterback play, solid running backs, great players around you, it can make all the difference in the world. I think you take it, for example, a guy like Cam Robinson. Cam Robinson in Jacksonville, Brent, was pretty solid, right? I think he goes to Minnesota and he has a lot of ups and downs. I think if you watch the last game of the Vikings season, I think Vikings fans are mad that they actually got Cam Robinson, right? I think Juwan Taylor's another example of that, where Juwan Taylor here in Jacksonville had a pretty solid run, right? Pretty decent run. He goes to Kansas City, and I think it's some up and down, right? He has some good showings, but then all of a sudden, okay, there's a lot of penalties. There's a lot of, false starts. There's a lot of not getting on the line of scrimmages and everything. So sometimes it just comes down to the coaching. It comes down to the scheme. But to answer your question, I'm not going to ship Walker Little off quite yet. And I'm not going to say, okay, let's get a guy in the first round. Let's see what Liam Coleman can do, right? Let's see what a Cohen offense looks like on Walker Little. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, then yeah, maybe go in a different direction. But, according to these analytics a little bit by Dan Griffiths, I mean, there's a lot to like. And you can't buy everything in analytics. I'm the first one to say that. But with some of the numbers, it's like, okay, if he gets a good quarterback and if he gets a good offensive play caller, things could turn around.
Hey, thatonepainter.com/first-coast, the place to go for all your painting needs. Hey, they love what they do. They've got a passion about it. You love folks. You want to hire folks that do that, right? Stress-free, mess-free service, respectful time and communication, and value-based pricing, all from thatonepainter.com/first-coast, first-coast online. And also just give them a call, 904-643-3025. That One Painter First Coast presents Paint the Play, or Paint the Player in this case, and it's Walker Little. And I'm going to add on to this discussion, guys, with I feel like James Gladstone hinted that he's okay with the tackles in Anton Harrison and Walker Little when he really spent a lot of time talking about setting the dish, right? Now, was that just a philosophy thing for him? Like, hey, you got to be good on the interior? It probably did. It comes across that way. But he really didn't mention the tackle side, right? You wouldn't mention that. And is maybe that the way he's looking at it? Like, hey, this interior as a piece, those three are actually more important now in today's game than the guy on the edge at left tackle and the guy on the right tackle spot. You got to take, so you really look at it as three different ways, and then you can weigh it. They're all important, of course, but you can weigh it. Left tackle, interior, right tackle. We used to look at it as like, okay, well, the left tackle's value is high, and then it goes to right tackle, and then it's the center, and then it's the left guard, and then it's the right guard. Well, I think what he's doing, and maybe this new wave of thinking a little bit that we don't really talk like this, is left tackle, right tackle, dish. Meaning all three of those guys are one in terms of how you look at it. So the other thing about Walker Little here, and some of these metrics from Daniel Griffiths hint at it, but I think it's important to note, when you have Cam Robinson out on the market now, and he's one of the top free agents available at the tackle position, that says a lot about the tackle position, with all due respect to Cam. there aren't a lot of these guys out there. It's the point, right? It's hard to get these guys. Look at the guards being talked about. Some people are letting them go, like Cincinnati. Does that mean you go grab them? I don't know. Buffalo, they let Mitch Morse go, and he was good for Jacksonville, but they did okay too, right? So, why are they letting these guys go? You always have to ask that question, but I think you ask the simple supply and demand question too. There are not a lot of these human beings that do this job. There are less human beings that do this job well, and then there are a small few that do this job at an elite level. So while you don't like to do this on your football team all the time and say, hey, is this satisfactory? Right? At the very least, is it satisfactory? Are we okay here? I do think at left tackle and right tackle and offensive line, sometimes in general, you do ask those questions, Austin, where you're like, we could do worse. And that's really been the story the last few years is like, listen, the Jags offensive line has not been elite, but you could do worse. And do you run the risk of doing worse before you kind of try to find greatness would be the question. And I think you asked that here, and the Jags maybe have opportunities to get better in the defensive interior or the corner or wherever you want to say faster than they could get elite at the left tackle position here. And maybe that keeps Walker Little at his job and say, hey, let's just develop this guy and let's settle him in and see what we got here. He was a second-round pick, still a young player. He's got skills. And now let's go find out how good he really is. And they might be okay with that. And maybe that's an okay thing here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, you know what? And to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, though, too, here, Brent, as well. Look what Liam Cohen has come from, right? Like, he had a guy in Tristan Wirfs. Tristan Wirfs was a guy, like, once he got on the field right away, Brent, you knew, like, this is going to be a bad man. I think Penei Sewell is another classic example. Penei Sewell, when you drafted him, and he fell, right? He was supposed to go to Cincinnati. He falls to Detroit. But as soon as he started playing, you knew right away, like, okay, this guy is probably going to be a staple tackle for a long time to come. With Walker Little, and once again, maybe it's playing out of position a little bit. It's not doing right by Walker Little, but we really don't know yet. We're still on the fence. We're still on the kind of like, let's wait and see what's going to happen. And you got to wonder, you know, I guess just how much of a priority offensive tackle or offensive line really is to Liam Cohen. And I think you'd put it up there pretty high because I've said this to start the show off. His offense ran through that offensive line. Like this staple, the calling card of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, like, yeah, it was Baker Mayfield, it was Bucky Irving, but it stemmed from that offensive line. So there's a premium there. And I wonder if that premium is going to be so much where it's like, yeah, we can wait and see what Walker Little can do, or do we pull the trigger on a first-round pick and maybe get more of a sure thing? Once again, I'm not saying it's what they should do, but I'm just playing, you know, devil's advocate here, saying if you look what Liam Cohen came from and how Tampa Bay kind of handled the situation, I wonder if he tries to mimic that a little bit and gets a first-round offensive tackle.
Yeah, it's. I think it's fascinating, man. I think it's real fascinating, the whole situation in Jacksonville right now with, again, the next 6, 7, 8 days are huge around here to, first of all, see what are they going to do with what they've already got. Like, are they going to make any moves? I don't feel like we're talking about that enough. Am I missing that? Are people talking about that more? Like, I believe there's a move coming here this week. Or, well, it wouldn't be this week. Well, it could be this week. I mean, maybe it's Christian Kirk, right? Yeah. I think people have talked about that move, but that's like it. Some people have whispered Evan Ingram, but are we missing something? Is there going to be another pretty dynamic move here that's like, whoa, didn't see that one coming down the line? Or is like, wow, that jostles the fan base a little bit. Or here on the show, that's breaking news. Whoa, wow, okay, now what? What do they see here? I feel like something like that could still transpire, and I'm really waiting to see how they view this roster, how they view being able to eat dead money, move on from somebody, much like the Eagles are moving on from Darius Slay, or some other things like that are happening around the league with the Deebo Samuel trade to Washington, which, by the way, got kind of buried over the weekend. So,
yeah. Sorry, John Cena.
Yeah, so it's just going to be wild to see that, and then the next phase what they do in the draft, where it's like, well, wait a minute, they already got those guys, and offensive line could certainly be that. That's that one Painter First Coast, by the way, paint the player in this scenario with Walker Little, and you can read more about him on actionsportsshacks.com. Thanks to Daniel Griffiths for that topic today. It fit in very nice here on the Brent and Austin show. By the way, somebody on Twitter, I said, are you cool with Walker Little as a left tackle of the Jaguars? Daniel Griffiths writes about it. We talk about it now. And Quacking Jag says, dude, stop in capital letters. What does that even mean? Like, what does that even mean? Dude,
Ask
stop
him.
what?
Ask him.
I did. I said, what does that even mean? Like, and then the next guy, some guy, Jeff says, like, why? What are we doing here? What I don't understand. Is this a hard topic? Does that not make sense? Like, is that a fair question? Like with Walker Little being your left tackle or not?
I mean, listen.
What am I missing here on Twitter?
Yeah, man. I mean, listen. I'm the first person to say, hey, Brent, it's going. Relax on Twitter. Let's make sure we've typed everything correctly and then not try to cause a firestorm here. But that's a legitimate question. And I think what's going to happen? Either you draft the first round offensive tackle, then okay, Walker Little's probably done. Or you're not going to trade. Well, I guess you could trade, but I don't know who's even out there to trade. But you want to address him in free agency because Cam Robinson's probably the best offensive tackle out there. So we're all set in that standpoint. So then what else is there? Like, if you draft a guy in the second or third round, there's no guarantee they're going to be a starter right away, right? Then there's going to be a camp competition. So that's a legitimate tweet. That's a legitimate question.
Yeah, Coach Ripley says, do you think Walker, Cleveland, Morris, and Harrison deserve to be the starters no matter what? I think that is the key evaluation point for this new staff and the intent of who or what the roster could or should be. And I think that's it. That's it, Coach Rip. Like, that's the question. Where do you weigh that? And again, I'm stuck on contractually obligated versus, hey, we can get better here. So I will say this, Gene Fournette, who, by the way, fired off one of the all-timer tweets yesterday. He has one once about every week. He was at the JU game yesterday. He had them playing Austin P instead of Eastern Kentucky. Had a couple of different typos in there as well. It was great. Gene Fournette kind of theater. We appreciate it. But he also said this morning, Dane Brugler of the Athletic post-combine mock draft has Jags taken LSU tackle guard Will Campbell with 5th pick. Last time a guard went top 5, ironically, current Jags free agent Brendan Sheriff in 2015. So if you're going to get the Brendan Sheriff resume, specifically the guy that played for the Commanders, and he can play guard, that wouldn't be a bad way to go, Austin.
No, it wouldn't be. But once again, I think if that's the case, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the first round hit rate is of interior offensive linemen, centers, and guards. I assume it's got to be pretty high because the guy that I can think of has contributed pretty well. But if you get a guard top 5, even top 8, he better be Quentin Nelson. It's as simple as that. We better see highlights of him pulling for the next 10 years to come, or else what are we doing?
Yeah, here's Quacking Jag did get back to me, by the way. Just the Walker Little bleep, I don't get it, to be honest. I feel like it's just making new holes for no reason. And now, listen, I go from kind of being like, well, why are you bouncing back, to saying, I think that is a fair point. And I've made that point for a long time around here, when you have a lot of holes. But I think we're asking different questions now. We're asking, do you have holes or do you have chances to get better, really good in spots, right? There's two different things. We've got hole pluggers on this team. I mean, you can talk Mason Graham all you want. We've got plenty of Mason Graham bodies in there. We're just wondering, does he elevate you and make you good for the next 5 to 10 years by getting young in that spot? Not necessarily just this year, but when an Eric Armstead goes away, the Devon Hamilton contract runs out, if Mason Smith doesn't work, all those different things. So, I mean, these are different lines and levels of questioning, which I think in a way is a good thing for this roster, is that you're not just being like, okay, we've got a guy here, a body, we don't need that spot. I think we have asked that question in Jacksonville before.
Yeah.
The question that you're asking really on the Walker Little front or other positions, really outside of corner, because right now I guess you could say you have Darby, but I just don't think they actually have a corner opposite of Tyson Campbell. I think you're asking, can you upgrade? Can you upgrade on the offensive line and spots? Can you upgrade maybe at wide receiver? Can you upgrade in the defensive interior? I guess they don't have a safety either right now, too. So, I mean, if you're looking for a hole, they really just don't have a safety and a corner opposite Tyson Campbell.
Brent, let me go and ask you this, because it might be debatable. I'm not sure. Who do you think, what position group do you think can be more stable and can give you more, productivity? Do you think if you keep Walker Little, he'll do his thing. Or if you stay with Eric Armstead, Devon Hamilton, Mason Smith and company, will they be more consistent? Like, which position do you feel like can be upgraded more if you hit on it?
I love that
defensive
question,
tackle or obviously probably a left tackle?
Yeah, I love that question. I think we marry the offensive lineman. Again, in Campbell's place, would he play guard? It's just weird to see a right guard at number 5 overall. So we're thinking, okay, is this guy going to be your left tackle? I love that question. And the way I'm cool with Walker Little. So, like, I'm not advocating for left tackle here. Like, I'm just make that perfectly clear. But if you do think you can get a generation, if you start saying Trent Williams and Tristan Wirfs and he turns into that, well, I can see why you did it, right? I actually feel this way about the Mason Graham stuff. I can't say I hate the Mason Graham idea and pick, all right? I'm not going there. But I also don't feel like, if you really ask me, I'm as over the moon about that selection as everybody else seems to be here in Jacksonville. And part of that reason, Austin, is because of exactly what you just said. I have a hard time believing that if you throw him on the 3 technique, he's going to be better than Armstead if he's staying there, and even Mason Smith going into year 2 now, who's got some experience. Like, is he going to be better than those guys in 2025? He could be the overall better prospect, and obviously after 2025, you need some more bodies because Eric Armstead will be gone. But I actually have faith that Armstead's going to bounce back in a big way this year. And I actually think Mason Smith might be an okay player. I think he showed some good flashes for the second round pick. So, like, that is a little bit of my hesitation with and I don't know why I keep throwing even Devon Hamilton in this mix. I'm just thinking interior. But the way he weighed in, like, he's not playing the nose, right? I mean, he's a 3 technique guy, Mason Graham is. Yep. And so you've got to beat out those 2 guys. So how much is he even getting on the field here in 2025? I think it's a fair question.
I think it is too. And it kind of, because listen, I'm the defensive side of the ball, right? So I'm team Mason Graham all day. But then when I look at the big picture and I say, okay, I mean, is this guy going to be Aaron Donald? Like, I don't know about that. So then theoretically, where's he playing? Because unless you let Eric Armstead go, unless you trade Eric Armstead, which that's not going to happen because there's not a lot of trade market right now, I feel like, for Eric Armstead. So he's here another year, and hopefully he plays his true position and does play better. And if you have, like we just mentioned, a guy like Mason Smith, who has shown some glimpses, another year of experience, Devon Hamilton, who, before, said injury, was a pretty consistent guy. Where does Mason Graham fit into that? Are we talking about an every down starter? Are we talking about a guy who's just going to rotate in and kind of learn the way, and then eventually maybe he might take over? I'm not sure. But if you take a first-round offensive tackle, you probably have a pretty good idea. If you take the best tackle in the draft, it'll work out for you. And it would probably be an upgrade from Walker Little. So, once again, I don't feel good about saying it, Brent, because I'm team defense all day. You got to shore up the trenches and everything. But I think it's a legitimate question to ask, much to the chagrin of some people on Twitter, where it's like, well, what do you run the risk of upgrading more right away? Offensive tackle or defensive tackle?
Hey, Hamby, I don't know if you're still with us. I miss you. I haven't talked to you, it feels like, in about a half hour or so. The last week, I feel like the cadence of this show, I'm like, well, I talked to Hamby a lot more. Austin was in fight camp and everywhere else. So I'm like, where is Hamby? Is he still in the building? Is this show just running on its own? But you put out your mock draft and you had Mason Graham.
That's right.
So, like, are we asking that question enough? The question that Austin just asked, and then I just asked, like, don't they have people in this spot? Like, are you going to get a lot of value out of Mason Graham in 2025 if you draft him at number 5 overall? Again, there are big picture things to every position that you hope these guys are good for 5 to 8 to 10 to 12 years. But we're talking 2025. It's not much of a different conversation than the left tackle conversation.
No, I mean, look, I get it, but I just think that, you rotate on the defensive line a lot more than you rotate on the offensive line. And I agree that offensive line is something that we need to shore up. However, at the end of the day, you're a 4-13 ball club. You're a 4-13 ball club who has expectations a lot higher. To me, that means that whoever you draft has to make an immediate impact. If I cannot guarantee that I take a left tackle at number 5, and I don't even know where he's going to play as of April 27th or whenever the first day of the draft is, I'm going to have an issue with that. Now, if you go clear a spot and that's what you want to do, I'm all in. Or if you come out and say, here's the plan, I'm cool with that. But as a fan first, on January 27th, if Walker Little is still there, obviously Anton's still there, and you draft a left tackle as a team that just won 4 football games, that's going to be hard to sell. It's just going to be hard to sell. Now, look, help Trevor Lawrence. This is a player for the future. I get it. But I want to see immediate impact week 1, no exceptions. Now, Mason Graham, is he going to see, an 80, 90% snap count week 1, since you do have Mason Smith who's ascending and you do have Eric Armstead who is going to play that inside role a lot more? No. But he's going to be on the field a lot more than a left tackle would be. But you have to play him. You've got to play him right away. And so if we were the a team that was on the fringe of the playoffs, who was 1-2 players away, and we want to say, hey, but we want to get that player in free agency, or we want to get that player in the second round. But we really,
oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan.
That's a commercial playing in the background. I'm sorry about that.
I didn't hear it. You're good.
We don't even hear it.
No problem. It was just a second. But if you want to say we'll go get a guy in our second round because we're 2 players away, we'll get a guy in free agency, but also long term, that's different. 4 wins, you got to get an immediate impact.
The Hamby commercial break, I like that.
Hamby's trying to talk me off the ledge a little bit here, taking a defensive tackle, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I do, yeah. Listen, I just think it's such a crazy thing. You can talk us into that, and then you can be like, well, listen, do you want to go get blue chippers or what? Like, it doesn't matter where they are, go get blue chippers. Like, that should not turn your attention. You need blue chippers. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champs because they have a lot of them. They have way more than you do. So you go get them. It doesn't matter what position. The only position you really can't do that with is quarterback. You're not going to go take a quarterback, right? Because you're paying your guy. Other than that, if you have another guy that's really good at a position and might be better than your guy, and you think he's like really, really good, then you go get him and you figure it out. Like you just find a way. Let's just do this for fun. 2 things. You think Mason Graham's awesome? You want him to play right away? You want him to play more? You want him to grow with Mason Smith in that rotation? Then you trade the Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner, or you cut him and you eat the dead money, right? Yeah. And you create space. You could do that. And I'm not saying you even have to do that, but you could do that. If you really think that whether it's Campbell or the kid from Missouri are really good and generational type of left tackle, 10 years, these guys, well, then you try to trade Walker Little. Plenty of teams are looking for tackles still, and he can play the left and right side, and the contract is pretty friendly. So, like, you could do it if you wanted to do it, but our eyes and everything go this time of year, free agency and the draft, to, okay, how do you plug the holes? Crazy enough, the Jags don't really have a lot of eyesore holes. They have safety. Like I said, I think they still have corner opposite of Tyson Campbell. And outside of that, and they have right guard. I'm sorry, and they have right guard. So outside of that, they're just asking the question, do we want to get younger and cheaper, or do we want to get better at positions? And what do we have to do to do that? I think, am I missing something?
No, you're not. Hamby, I want to ask you this question, and solely you, because you probably know better than anybody. When we talk about the Eagles and what they've done in the draft, obviously offensive line, defensive line has been a big asset to that. When you look at Mason Graham, I get he's highly touted. He could be the best defensive tackle of the draft. Okay. When you look at him, do you get the same vibe of when you watched Jordan Davis, when you watched Jalen Carter? Like, do you get that game wrecking? Because, I mean, I'll be honest, when me and Brent had the old show, I broke down Jordan Davis. And then I went on to say on the wall that says it all, like, yeah, Jordan Davis is good, dude, but this guy, Jalen Carter, wait till you see him. He's younger, but like he's already flashing on film. Like he's his size, his speed, his athleticism, like he's gonna be a problem. So my question, Hamby, because you follow Georgia more than anybody, like, do you see that in Mason Graham? Do you see like the capabilities to take over a game like we saw from Jordan Davis in college, like we saw from Jalen Carter in college?
Yeah, I think before I get to that, one of the reasons why people, especially the playoff run, became such fans is not the right word, but they recognize Jalen Carter a lot more because he hasn't necessarily he didn't play way. It's not like he played way better in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. Jalen Carter and the stud defensive tackles are the guys that make the play oftentimes without making the play, right? So you don't always hear their names called, but they blew up the block, which the linebacker plugged the hole, and he made it, right? So
I mean, you would see like a pulling block, pulling, and all of a sudden here's Jalen Carter just putting him on his back. Like, even when he wasn't like in the stat column, you had to watch him just because like he forced you to watch him. Yeah, I agree with that.
So Jordan Davis, I'm going to set him aside because he's a totally other body type. That he's strictly kind of run stuff. I mean, his athleticism is off the charts for his size, but Jalen Carter, I think in my mind, just when that question is pitched, I think Jalen Carter's a tad more violent. I've also watched 10 times more Jalen Carter than I have Mason Graham, so let me just put that out there. But I just think he's a tad more violent, but Mason Graham at the same level is going to blow up plays and be a disruptor on every down. I think Mason Graham is the every single down type guy. And, those that are truly in love with Mason Graham are comping him to Aaron Donald. I don't think he's quite there pass rush wise, but again, he's a guy that you don't have to worry about third down. Oh, Mason Graham is on the field. That's just going to be a sore spot. He's going to be walked back up. The edge guys got to win their one-on-ones. Like, that's not the case. He's a down in, down out disruptor. And I don't think a guy like that you can just easily pass up because, again, look at the Eagles. They didn't say, well, we got, Jordan Davis and we got this guy. And no, they didn't let Fletcher, Cox, and Graham, and I know that's more of the edge outside, but they didn't let that stop them from going and getting Carter, Davis, Nolan Smith, going out and signing Sweat, right? They just hey.
Is it Montez Sweat? Yeah.
Josh Sweat.
I think Josh Sweat. Yeah.
But hey, the more the merrier. Like, again, we can't replicate the Chiefs. The Chiefs are almost like, if you try to replicate the Chiefs, good luck. Let's replicate a team that seems at least a little bit more pedestrian. Okay, that's the Eagles. Let's try to replicate that. They said the more the merrier. Well, let's follow suit. We have an aging Eric Armstead, who we don't even know how good he is going to be on the outside, on the inside. So, you get Mason Graham, who's going to play 60% of the snaps or split snaps with Armstead, but also split snaps with Hamilton and Mason Smith. You got four guys right there in the middle, and then next year it's just the Mason show, and then you run it from there.
Yeah, it's a good point, man. It's you can't have enough of them. Again, we can everybody's points are good here, I think. I think you can get talked into it. To what you're saying about, I'm certain not just to go to the Eagles, but I'm thinking the kryptonite for Kansas City in the last couple of Super Bowls has been that defensive front, right? The kryptonite for Tom Brady, the best to ever do it, was the New York Giants front. The Buffalo Bills, I think, have really chased it, and it looks like they might be going after Myles Garrett, at least as some of the rumors come out of the combine, but they went and got Von Miller. You go back to Detroit, when Peyton Manning was a shell. I'm sorry, not Detroit, Denver. When they were a shell of themselves, Peyton Manning was by that time. The one year. No,
he had one crazy year.
Yeah, two crazy years, and one of them they won it. But the defensive front was awesome, including Malik Jackson, right? And some other guys that they had brought in, the free agents. So there is something to be said. And to the like we are in Jacksonville closer to having one of those kind of fronts than at least right now what we've seen about Trevor Lawrence being Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. The Jags already have two good edge rushers. They actually have a guy very well credentialed in Armstead. They've got some experience with Devon Hamilton. They've got some youth with Mason Smith. So if you just continue to pile on to that rotation of players, and now you have 8 guys that are good. Shoot, if you had 9 guys that are good, who cares, right? Because even Philadelphia at the podium, Howie Roseman's like, he can never have enough of them, man. We're going to go get. Here's the deal. If Mason Graham was available for the Philadelphia Eagles, they would take him.
Yeah. Sure.
Right? So, and that's it. Maybe that's the test at the end of the day, to be able to say that. Hey, we're way late on a break. Let's hit one. Then we got a busy noon hour as well. Plus, I want to get to the chat. Chat's been busy today, so we'll entertain some things going on in the chat. Catch up a little bit there. Speaking of entertaining, there's a ton going on this week in Jacksonville. We're going to tell you all about it this week. We've got some Gator National interviews Wednesday, Thursday. Ron Capps, one of your favorites, Austin. He's going to be in studio with us on Thursday. Always a fun interview. Gator Nationals coming up this weekend. Check out NHRA.com if you haven't done it yet. We got the Amelia. We've been telling you about that for about a month. Well, this is the week. Concord d'Elegance up in Amelia Island, the 30th Amelia. And you can see on our QR code on the left side of the screen, left corner there, that you can just click that and you can find out more information about the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday event that will get more than 30,000 people most likely up there to Amelia Island, be a part of those festivities. And then, and I know Ronan's like this in the past. I'm not sure if he's grown out of it by now as he enters double digits. But Monster Jam is back in Jacksonville, and we'll visit with a driver coming up on Friday during the show. Always pretty cool to see what those guys are all about in their backgrounds. Anyway, tickets available at Ticketmaster. Maybe they should change it for the week. Like Ticketmonster.
They should definitely change
something
that
for them? I might have just
I'm not
did
mad
that
at
for
that,
them.
Brent. I'm not mad at that.
So you can get your tickets for Saturday night's show. It's the last thing at Everbank Stadium, by the way, until football in August. They're going to do a lot of work at Everbank, as it already is underway, but they're going to do even more once Monster Jam is done this weekend. You get the trackside experience, the Monster Jam pit party. Check it all out at Ticketmaster. Again, we'll have more on that coming up later on in the week. We'll come back. More football talk. Brent Austin Show, Action Sports Jax 24/7 network from Melbourne, Florida to Jacksonville, Florida to somewhere in Wisconsin. We're all over the place here on a Tuesday.
The Tom Bush family of dealerships, they've been serving customers in the Jacksonville area for 55 years. They've been your go-to spot to get and stay on the road since 1970, and that's still the case here in 2025 and beyond, even if the cars have changed just a little bit.
Check out the sleek line of vehicles of the future. That's right, electric vehicles. Tom Bush offers a full lineup of reliable electric cars with state-of-the-art service facilities. Like the new VinFast, Tom Bush is among the first dealers in the entire country to offer the VinFast, and let me tell you, this thing is sweet. The good folks at Tom Bush have all the info on charging, service, tax credits, and everything you need to keep your EV running smoothly. BMW, Mazda, Volkswagen, Mini, and the newly offered VinFast. There's something for everyone at the Tom Bush family of dealerships. Ready to join the Tom Bush family? Stop by the showroom or check out the inventory online at tombush.com.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jax 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers! And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
For 60 years, the Bob Hayes Invitational Track Meet has provided competitive events, and we're also happy to provide scholarship opportunities too. Join us for the annual Hall of Fame Gala March 13th at the Potter's House and at the James Day Middle School Meet at UNF March 14th.
There they go.
And don't forget the annual Bob Hayes Track and Field Meet at UNF Saturday, March 15th. Get tickets and info at bhitm22.org. For vendors and partnerships, call 904-222-1075.
I'm ready to show my hand, ready to take a stand. Wait on a sign above, and I am ready, ready. 'Cause I just live for the game. 'Cause I just live for the game. 'Cause I just live for the game.
What is the Amelia, if you don't know?
Do you feel it coming? The rumble in your chest, the roar of the crowd. It's an experience you won't forget. The Emily Motor Oil NHRA Gator Nationals are back March 6th through 9th at Gainesville Raceway. It's where anticipation meets asphalt, where you can meet your heroes face to face and feel like a part of the action. Plus, parking and kids under 12 are free with general admission. The Emily Motor Oil NHRA Gator Nationals, March 6th through 9th. Get your tickets today.
Just be yourself. Maybe we're talking about being a dad or a mom, a first responder or a teacher. Maybe it's a sports fan. We love those. We're talking about anyone in the Jacksonville community. At Community First Credit Union, just be yourself means being real. When you partner with Community First, it's straightforward. They're people connecting with you so you can be yourself. I've been coming here to Community First for years. This is the Bartram branch, the one I usually come to. And they have mortgage loans, personal loans, and auto loans. And I'm almost done paying off that truck loan. Just a few more months. Good rates, easy online banking, and friendly customer service when I have a question. It's easy to be myself with Community First. They live up to the slogan in their name. Community First has partnerships in the Jacksonville community with the Iceman, the Florida Theater, the Jacksonville Zoo, and many more. Visit one of the Jacksonville branches or find out all you can do with Community First Credit Union at communityfirstfl.org so you can just be yourself.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austin Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Hey, welcome back to the show, and thank you to Jimmy Johnson, the Fox is saying, as he was on that show for, I think, 2 decades and is now retired. I think he's had a pretty cool gig for the last, 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, probably, down in Key West, because I think that's where he calls home. Probably has a couple of them, and then would fly over or do whatever else you got to do to get to L.A. studios, and not a bad gig for Jimmy Johnson. I will say this. When this news came out, there are a lot of folks nowadays where you talk about, a name. I'm trying to think of one. That you equate them now more to, Terry Bradshaw, for example.
Okay.
You equate him more to a broadcaster and seeing him on Fox and everywhere else than you do as a player. Right? And McAfee's a great one, right? McAfee's a great one. So
Bill Walton's another one. And by the way, peace. Yeah.
And McAfee's a little different because he was a punter, to be in fairness. I mean, seriously, but Walton was an unbelievable player with great history and legend stuff from, the NBA to obviously his college days at UCLA. Jimmy Johnson, not Jimmy Johnson here. Who else did you just mention? You mentioned somebody else, or did I mention somebody else?
I said Pat McAfee and Bill Walton.
Yeah, what did I say? I already forgot.
Maybe
you said Terry Bradshaw.
Kenny Smith.
Oh, I said Bradshaw, right? Because Hamby would know Bradshaw and this whole generation of younger people. You'd be 40 and under, and you would know Bradshaw more as a broadcaster than a 4-time Super Bowl champ and history with the Steelers, I think. Now, he played. I'm just saying. Jimmy Johnson, here's where I'm getting at. Jimmy Johnson, for me, he never morphed into that. Like, I don't look at him as great broadcaster or, wow, with Fox, as I do great head coach. Like, he to me is a coach. Like, maybe it's a coach thing, Austin, because like Cowher's been on now CBS for a long time, and maybe he's just not as good at it as some others, but he still, I think of him as a coach. But you take like John Madden, and you forgot that guy coached, right? I mean, he was broadcaster extraordinaire. Yeah. So it's just interesting how some of these guys you forget about their careers. Jimmy Johnson to me wasn't that. Like, I think Fox will be fine without Jimmy Johnson on their show. And I'm not trying to slight him. I'm just saying the Dallas Cowboys haven't been fine ever since he left.
That's true. Sounds like Brent's trying to come for his job, though, more than anything, I feel like.
How old's Jimmy Johnson, Hamby? Do you know? Is he up to like? Is he late 70s, early 80s? He was getting. I mean, that was an old set, by the way.
Yeah,
that Fox studio
81.
set is an old set I mean, Bradshaw
seems older though.
I mean, he does. You're right.
I feel bad for TB. Every single time they try to give him the halftime highlights, and he's got to get through 8 games in 3 minutes. I'm like, holy cow, the guy's gonna run out of breath.
I thought you were talking about Tom Brady for a second.
I think Mr. Hugo says Joe Morgan calling baseball games. That's interesting because, and I know he did. And maybe a lot of people look at him that way. And I don't know if maybe it's because my father-in-law is a big Cincinnati fan or just I'm a big baseball fan. I always thought Joe Morgan the player more than the broadcaster, but I get what you're saying there. One other thing, by the way, about baseball and that Reds team, it sounds like Pete Rose posthumously, they're starting to move off that ban and everything. That was one of the stories over the weekend. I guess that his family has now reached out to Robert Manfred and the commissioner, and could we get some movement on that finally, which would, I think, be good for baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be huge news for the Reds until Brent Martineau picks them to win the division again when we do our predictions, and then we know how that's going to end. But, hey, we're still a couple weeks away from that whole thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Hey, Hamby, you're a big baseball guy. Have you been watching spring training? Because I haven't checked out a game. Steph actually just mentioned it yesterday. She's like, oh, the Reds are playing. Or she said the Red Sox and Orioles were tied 6-6. I don't know what. I was like, I haven't even looked at it. Like, I have not even looked at a spring training game yet. Have you?
I've watched an inning or two. I've known enough to watch Austin Riley and Matt Olson go back-to-back off of Stroman Sunday, so that was cool. And then, obviously, our starting catcher, Sean Murphy, he gets hit by a pitch. He's cracked rib, 4 to 6 weeks already, so that's really cool, especially after we let Darno go to the Angels.
In spring training.
Unfreaking believable, because we're going to be trotting out a rookie who's there's a lot of hype behind him, and we think he's really good, Drake Baldwin. But he's going to be getting the opening day start for the first couple of weeks also. So, look, can we just not have a repeat of last year? If we're going to lose, can we just lose with the guys that we actually have? That would be awesome. I had my fantasy baseball draft last night. I did draft Acuna. I did draft Strider as well as bench stashes until we get to that time being. So if you're playing me week 1 or week 2, congrats on your win. I'll see you in the playoffs.
This dude couldn't even wait to opening day to bust out the R. Unbelievable.
Tough.
Hey, I want to get, we've had a busy day in the chat. I want to give a shout out to our folks that always jump in from the good mornings. YB400 says this, and I kind of like this line. Put on a shirt, Grand Rising Coffee Buddies. I should send you some coffee, YB400. I like it. Sounds like you have a cup or two. And, well, we're on some of those as well.
I should ask this real quick, Brent, too, because obviously I was up late last night, dealing with everything. And the nurses come in with coffees. And like, hey, we got you a coffee. I go, oh, no, I'm all good. I don't do coffee. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't drink coffee. I just don't do it. And they're like, well, then what do you do? Because they're just taken back by it. And I'm just like, I live. I don't know. I just deal with it. I just live my life. I don't know. They couldn't, because I mean, I'm sure, especially, and dude, by the way, shout out to nurses, man. Like, you want to talk about the real MVPs? Unbelievable.
No doubt.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like they kind of have to live off coffee, especially like when you have to work that night shift. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Delphonic, I have never heard of this, man. He jumped in. He said Friday off every time because I'd asked, what do you want, Mondays or Fridays? And he said Fridays every time. He said his old job, they did a 9/80 schedule with every other Friday off. It was awesome. And it took me a minute to, like, comprehend what that meant. I've never heard of that. So basically, they would work Monday through Friday and then Monday through Thursday. And that somewhere in there, and 80 hours would be the total.
Yeah.
But you'd have that other Friday off. Now, that's pretty cool. That's a good way to go. I like that, a little mix. Yeah, don't hate that at all. YB400 says, I have Mondays off, but do love a Friday off. No doubt about it. Let's see. A lot of love for you, Austin, and the family up there in Wisconsin right now.
Cool.
So a lot of good thoughts that way.
Appreciate you.
Let's see what else. I don't watch wrestling anymore, but is this bigger than Hogan going to NWO? Says Delphonic. I actually thought the same thing. Like the Cena turn feels like the Hogan turn to me, because Hogan was that guy that was never going to pivot as a kid, and he's just like unbelievable, and he's the positive guy, But then when that turned, it was like, what the heck, man? I don't like him. It was really like any Red Sox player that's gone to the Yankees for me.
There's a lot to choose from, I feel like, too. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more on the Scrap House tomorrow. What a plug. But I do feel like it's even more of a big deal that Cena turned than Hogan, because Hogan, he turned when he was in a new company, right? And he kind of showed glimpses because he started wearing black and everything. So you may have seen the little transition in the past. With Cena, a dude that just wears jean shorts, neon, all the colors, and does all the Make-A-Wishes, like, I'll be honest, and then, like, usually I can kind of spot what's going to happen in the script. I didn't see that one coming at all, man. So I honestly think John Cena is even is more big a deal than Hogan. But Hogan was the benchmark.
Yeah, that was definitely the comp or the parallel there for me when I saw it happen. William Torres says, looks like Witherspoon was still a hefty 175. We were bringing him up, the Jags' old kick returner corner, whereas Tez over there at 154 pounds was even a lightweight compared to Witherspoon. I didn't know Witherspoon was that much. He didn't look like that to me. Duval Paul says, all for stacking the OL, meaning the line, and this conversation we just had. Delphonic does ask this, Austin, what's your take on arm length? Will Campbell has a tackle film, but people say he needs to be a guard due to arm length. Only 3/8 shorter than Rashawn Slater. Is this a tongue-in-cheek Trent Baalke question, or is that legit from Delphonic from guard to tackle?
I don't know, man. It might be a little tongue-in-cheek. I always say this. The best tackle that I ever went against, and maybe I'm going to be wrong here, like in terms of his size and stature and his arm reach, but the best tackle hands down was Joe Thomas. And when you watch Joe Thomas on film, and once again, I'm not sure what his reach was. Maybe want to look at it up. But when you went against him, like there's some tackles in the NFL when we played where like you watch him, it's like, oh, dude, it's gonna be a long day. He's gonna lower his head. He's gonna be this physical presence. It's gonna be a 2 chin strap type of day. And then there's some tackles that you went against where it's just like, what am I supposed to do against this guy? Because sometimes he jump sets, sometimes he gets like sometimes a 3-step, sometimes it's 5-step. Like he always keeps you guessing and he makes you uncomfortable. And that was Joe Thomas. So to me, what makes a tackle a great. So that's
it was low.
That's long, huh?
It said only.
That's low. Okay.
Well, according to this, it said only 33.8 inch arms, which concerned quite a few people.
Exactly. So this is my point. I understand we have these preconceived notions all the times of these athletic enigmas that have the 8 feet reaches and they can jump out of the gym and can run a 40-yard dash and 4.9 and all this stuff, and that's great, and that can add to the mystique, if you will. But to me, man, it's more about between the ears and what you're made of if you play an offensive tackle. And Joe Thomas is the classic example of it. Wasn't the biggest dude, wasn't the fastest dude, wasn't the most athletic dude, wasn't the longest dude, but he knew how to pass set and he knew the position of offensive tackle. So to answer Delphonic's question, does arm reach matter? Yeah, it helps, but it's not everything.
Look, I know we're talking about size and length. Brent, real quick, did y'all see? I don't know how we haven't gotten to this. The biggest story of the entire weekend is that Jalen Milroe grew his hands a full inch in the last month.
Where would he have been measured prior to that?
At the Senior Bowl.
How would you have known?
They have his hand size.
Senior Bowl does the hand stuff
at 8 3/4 at the Senior Bowl. Fast forward to a month, apparently we're 9 3/8 now. So I guess we've just been doing, I don't know, stretches.
Stretching.
Or
yeah, man.
stretch
that. Yeah,
pulling the fingers, or maybe a little Force, maybe a little Star Wars. I don't know.
Kenny Pickett's listening to us being like, "Dang it, missed it by that much."
I used to hang from a tree to try to get taller. That didn't work. And now stretching the hands out, maybe that does work. I mean,
Hamby's kind of new to the show, though. Hamby, do you know the trick on the vertical jump that I talked about before? So a key about the vertical jump, right? So we're always taught, well, there's a couple ways that you can cheat in the combine. And one of the biggest ones is the vertical jump, because back in the day when I was 2010, the combine, we had the loose fitting shorts. So they'd go over on knees. And how they measure the vertical jump is you stand straight up, you put your arm up, and then you jump from that mark, and then you obviously jump as high as you can, and that's how they measure your vertical, right?
Okay.
Well, what you would do is you'd bend your legs just a little bit, and your shorts would be over your knees so they couldn't see your legs. And then also what you could do is, instead of like extending your arm all this,
right.
You know what? I kind of got a tight AC joint, kind of got a tight collar, but whatever the case may be,
right.
Rotator cuff. So then you bring the arm down a little bit, and you could buy yourself maybe 3 or 4 inches.
So you're telling me that you had an insane vert?
On paper, sure.
Okay.
no, it was broad jump. It was broad jump that you did really well.
Broad jump was the one I did really well in, which I didn't. You can't really cheat the broad jump.
Yeah,
you
that's
gotta
a
jump
tough
out
one.
and do your best. So yeah.
One other quote, message, by the way. I just got to get it in because it's a very nice shameless plug. It's Killer Tofu says, "I love your truck." So must be talking about my Nimnik Buick GMC. You can go check them out at nimnikbuickgmc.com or Phillips Highway, by the way, GMC. We are professional grade. I've got another thing going on here. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I haven't shaved in like 5 days. This is like the best I do right here. It's about as much growth as I get.
Hold on.
Yeah.
And
not
I was
not
with
so
my
much
mom
professional grade there, Brent, on the
what do you think?
on the beard.
No,
not bad.
I mean,
I don't.
Dude's
Right,
acting like he's
This is a lot for me right here. This will be coming off tomorrow as I head back on TV, and I'll feel like I lose like 10 pounds when I do it. But the bigger story here is as you have a beard, and Hamby is getting married.
Grizzly Adams right now. He's like,
I do actually
growing in here. Like I mean,
I do.
Really.
I feel like Grizzly Adams.
Yeah.
And Hamby's got the fly on the wall.
The stash?
Goatee or mustache, whatever it is. So you've done it before. But I guess what I'm getting at here is I hear this all the time when people ask about the beard game. All right, because there's so many athletes now that have the beard game. They'll be like, "Oh, my wife won't let me shave it. She loves it." And I'm like, well, I was with my mom and my sister, and just even giving them like a hug goodbye or something, and I scraped up against them, and they're like, "Oh man, you got to shave." Then like Steph hates it. She's like, "No, get it all, like shave that thing." So the women really like the beard, is what I'm getting at, because like I'm 0 for 3 this weekend.
I have a theory.
I think it all depends who you're talking to, man. Hamby, I can't wait to hear this, man. Go ahead.
If you're in the big leagues, it flies. Other than that, you're screwed.
Man. I think it's all about, I think it's all about like what you match it with, right? Like, do you have the chassis to match the engine? You know what I'm saying? Like the beard being the engine. Do you have the body type? Do you have the background? Do you have the job? I mean, all those
the body
things go
type's
into
growing.
It. Good.
This usually helps.
Good.
A little bit, a little gut, right? I mean, you gotta have a gut with a beard.
Jason Kelsey.
Gotta get a little heater going.
Jason Kelsey, let's do it.
Yeah, that's just wild. Like I hear that all the time. Like everybody will always ask about people's beards. Like, my wife loves it. My wife loves it. She'll kill me if I was like, really?
Yeah.
I don't really get that sense. Like I don't get that sense in my house.
At one point in time,
I was gonna say.
At one point in time, I had it as a goal in life, much later down for my gut to be at a size where I could set a grog on it and it wouldn't move. But then I realized that everybody would probably just confuse me as a Florida Gators fan. So I probably shouldn't go that route.
Andy, listen, when it comes to fashion, when it comes to presentation, yeah, I'm not the guy to be talking to. But if I was going to tell you one thing that you should do for your wedding, I say grow out a full-fledged mustache, man. Because
I've had it.
You go from baby face, but I'm saying like a legit, like I'm saying like thick, man. Like
no,
Super Troopers.
I could curl
Like
it a year and a
Nielsen.
half. A year and a half ago, I had it where I could curl it on the side, and they got shut down immediately.
Can I ask what by your fiance?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I get it. She's probably jealous. Didn't want anybody else to have you. Makes sense. Makes
So
sense.
why do you want him to grow this mustache for the wedding?
I do look a lot older.
I think Hamby could rock a mustache, man. Honestly,
I'll send you a picture.
I think yeah, please. But don't send me. Put the chat in there, man. Send the stream the
I got you.
picture. But Brent, I think we're talking about a dude who, a good-looking guy, baby-faced, and directly upgrades himself to like a French Bond villain if he gets a mustache. Like I'm serious, man. You rock that mustache with a suit, people are gonna murmur in the best way possible.
Wear that butter yellow suit that what's his name had on at the Oscars.
Is that Timothy Chalamet?
Chalamet, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, he got what was that? Kendall Jenner, one of the Jenners. He got one of the Kardashians. So yeah, no big deal.
I actually watched my mom had it on, so I was watching like red carpet Oscars from Las Vegas yesterday for a bit. I was like, what am I doing right here? What am I doing now?
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't see too much after that. He never can name a damn movie that the Oscars are like winning awards for.
Hey.
That's why I say it every year. Not that I'm a big movie guy to begin with.
Yeah. No, I couldn't tell you 3 things about the movie that won like all the awards. I forgot what it's even. Adriana, whatever it's called, whatever that movie's called,
really?
that one. Yeah.
Okay.
I have
I
no
didn't
idea what
even
it
check.
even is. Yep.
Why does that always happen?
have
It's
no
so
idea.
amazing. It's always like that. While Hamby looks up for his mustache picture, Hamby also delivered this little nugget from the combine I thought was pretty interesting. And you're a small school guy. I would say, right, Murray State, small
Of course,
school.
man.
I'm a
Gotta
small
be.
school guy, Ashland
Yes.
University.
Yes.
I like small schools. But
So
there were
does
no
Gene
small
Smith.
school. Yes, there were no small school guys in the combine. Hamby finds us this note. From 2016 to 2021, before the transfer rule, an average of 20 and a half small schoolers were invited to the combine. Since 2022, that average has dropped to 14 and a half, the lowest it has been in the past 10 years. 0 D2 or D3 prospects have been invited to the past 2 combines. From 15 to 21, which is like a 6-year span, an average of 3.5 sub-FCS players were invited, with a high of 7 Division II and D3 players invited in 2017. I know it's a lot of numbers, but the bottom line is the small school guys are being phased out, washed out. You were
Correct.
invited to the combine as a small school guy. Now, it wasn't Division II or Division III school, but as a smaller school guy. Is this strictly the transfer portal because guys that are pretty good are going to get to this level don't stay at that Division II school, 3 school, or maybe even a smaller Division One? I think of a guy like Ben Barch, right? He was one of these. Did he go to the combine? I'm not sure, but he was drafted in the 4th round by the Jags.
He went to the combine because remember he's doing a so smoothie thing from the combine.
Oh yeah, of course he was. That's where the whole thing got hot. So but that guy wouldn't be still at St. John's or whatever it was in Minnesota where he came from. Like he would already be scooped up by Central Michigan or Michigan or Michigan
Even a
State.
bigger school, yeah.
Is my guess in this day and age. Is that just simple logic?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, man. You literally took the words right from my mouth because back when in 2010, like small school guys depended on the combine, right? Because the thought was, okay, you have great film, but you played against maybe inferior competition, so you have to see yourself on a bigger stage next to the bigger schools, whether that's SEC, Big Ten, Pac-12, whatever the case may be. So that was always the opportunity to kind of like see where you rank amongst the best players in the country from the bigger schools. Nowadays, and this is NIL and this is transfer portal, if you're a Ben Barch at a D3 school, whatever the case may be, you're going to go someplace else. Like, yeah, listen, I understand loyalty and we celebrate loyalty, but if you have a chance to make maybe $1 million or a little less, going to a different school or stay at your D3 school, what are you going to do? Okay. If you don't do that, then teams might be like, well, this guy must be like psychologically not well because he chose to stay at his D3 school, not make money and, play at better competition. So I just think that the way the transfer portal is now, because back when I played, if you want to transfer, you're sitting a couple years. Like those are years that you can be playing. You got to sit. It ain't the case anymore. So yeah, to echo your point, Brent, I just think it's because the transfer portal, because NIL, where if you're a great player at a small school, then you can be at a bigger school in the next year or so.
Yeah, so I mean, the bottom line is, it feels like we're done with needle in a haystack kind of picks like that you find, like or just these fines all of a sudden, or even I guess you could still get it on the undrafted free agent front. You're like, okay, we're not going to waste those guys with our draft pick process, but you can still look it up as the undrafted free agents, and maybe we see a lot smaller school guys. I don't know about a lot, but maybe that's where we see it. It's coming out of that undrafted free agent world, from the smaller schools, the D2s, the D3s, and maybe that's where you have your potential fines, but they're low risk, Austin, because it's not a draft pick that you're wasting it on.
Yeah, so I honestly think like the NFL Europe programs now and everything, and like the NFL Global, whatever they call it, that's the new small school, right? Where maybe under some circumstances, guys are whatever from Germany, Australia, where they can't leave their home and they got to stay behind. They play football, they get noticed, they get an invite to a combine or something like that, or maybe they even get drafted, whatever the case may be. And those, I think, now are your small school guys. Are those guys from different countries who, for whatever rhyme or reason, couldn't get a scholarship, couldn't come to the States, but a team will take a chance on them because maybe they did all the intangibles. We've seen a couple guys now. Who's the guy from Eagles, the 6'8" rugby player or whatever, Jordan Mailata, right? Yep. Yeah, that's a classic example of it. That worked really well for them. So that's the new small school now, I think, is getting like the European players, like the Australian players, or wherever they're from.
That's interesting. You wonder if you look up down the road, to your point, as the NFL continues to globalize, and I haven't really thought about this until you said it, but as it continues to globalize, will we eventually get to the point where, like Major League Baseball has, where they've got like an international draft?
Yeah.
Now, the NBA doesn't do it that way. The NBA, they just included in their draft process, and a lot of the European draft players or other international players end up getting drafted, some of them very high. So could we get to that where we get almost a supplemental, 2-3 picks to globalize, where they've already added the international player to the roster to try to help grow the game. And then that could be the next layer of this, a very small supplemental kind of draft pool at some point in the calendar year to add more of those players from international countries to the NFL. Be pretty interesting to keep an eye on. Hamby, this is something we've seen in college baseball. A lot of D2, D3 guys are being brought into, look at the College World Series last year, like North Carolina and other teams that were making runs. They were leaned heavily on previous Division II guys, and I think even a Division III guy or two were in the mix that really performed well because of their age. They'd been around the sport for a long time. They had a ton of at-bats. They gave those guys the opportunity. Now, baseball is a sport, to me, where the gap is so much more narrow. From Florida State to Ashland University, and I'm not telling you that it's even close to the same. I'm just telling you it's way more narrow of a gap than it is from, let me not use Florida State football this year for an example. Let me use Alabama and Ashland University football. Nice. The gap is like, it's a different sport, right? It's just a different sport. So, but in baseball, it's not like, I just saw a dude from my alma mater down here in Florida throwing 99 yesterday. He was throwing 99 Division II. I mean, that's on like
that's crazy.
He won't be there after this year if he's an underclassman. I can guarantee you that. So, but anyway, that's kind of the point. I just thought that was an interesting nugget Hamby shared with us. I didn't see that, and I don't know what it means. I just think we're getting closer and closer. I was talking a lot about this with my father-in-law and some other folks down in Southwest Florida this weekend. We're getting closer and closer to that, whatever it is, 64-team power league in college football. And the more I think about it, I just think, like, we're ready for it. Like, we got to figure it out. We got to get there. We're going to get there by the end of the decade, I would assume. And everybody else can go have their fun in normal college football. But we're going to get to that stage really quick. And I at first I was like, I don't like the idea of this. I like the old model, get off my lawn type of stuff. The more and more I think about it, guys, I think we get the best of both worlds. I think we get Power 4 football, which would pit a lot of those same like-minded, like-spending teams together against each other, which means more quality games. And then we get the old model of college sports with all the rest, where you're not playing that game, but you're back to like almost amateur sports, the way the NCAA was, maybe a couple bucks here or there, the way NIL was designed to be. If you can influence or help out, maybe you get some of that. But it's going to be two different entities sooner than later, and probably it's best for everybody. Keep in mind, TV would be driving this big time with the 64 Power 4 schools. That league, because now you'll get big time matchups for all the TV deals and everything else. So I think we're going to get both worlds. And when we get there, whether it's 2030 or what it looks like, could be. I kind of like it, Hamby. I think I do like it. I initially you don't like. I'll just go one more thought. Like Murray State would play Georgia, right? And Georgia would write them a check, right? And that check would be very valuable to Murray State. Like very valuable to their program and everything else. But the value of that, if you really look at over time, was to try to kind of close the gap, right, and get better and try to play big boy football the way other teams were doing it. And you can't keep up with it. You just can't. It's impossible. It doesn't matter if that check's $750,000 or $1.5 million. It still, in the long run, isn't going to make enough of a difference. So those teams are going to lose that check, unfortunately. We're going to lose that blowout. And that is fortunate that we lose the blowout part. But the landscape is going to kind of split. And I think we're going to end up with a new world, but also the old world when it comes to other college football that's not included in those 64. The question is, Hamby, will we watch it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, look, I like to say that I was a good multitasker over the last few minutes and that I was able to find some pictures back in 2023 of me with a good mustache while being fully engaged in this conversation, but that wasn't the case. However, I will say this about the Murray State and Georgia, like, if you want football, like, those are necessary things. That $750,000, that $1.5 million, that pays the salaries of the staff for that year. So the further we get away from that, like, what is the effect? Football programs are going to decrease. Like, schools are going to have to shut down their football programs, and so there's going to be a lot fewer places for kids to play. So will that product look? Football is football. The more football is the better. The more football, the better competitors are produced, and there's not going to be as many guys to transfer them. Not everybody can play D1 football, right? Obviously, we know that, but or Power 4 football. So if we love the sport, what makes the sport so great is that there's multiple levels of it and multiple talent levels, and that people that rise from those can continue on at higher ones if they so choose. But without that, the further we go from that, then look, you're going to have, you might cut the programs in half as far as total in the country.
Well, and to be fair too, guys, and I get it's definitely a rarity in college football, but what makes the sport so great as well is a team like North Dakota State, who has beaten Kansas State, who has beaten Iowa, who almost beat Colorado last year. You know, I mean, every once in a while you have one of those mid-major, you know, those FCS schools that come out and they can pull off a giant upset, and then, you know, we celebrate that. Will it be the difference between that FCS school making a college football playoff? Absolutely not. But I think there's still incentive where if you're a team like North Dakota State and you say, yeah, maybe, you know, if you're recruiting in state, you can maybe try to go to Iowa, maybe you can try to go to Nebraska and maybe compete for playing time, or you come play for us, you still play some of the big schools, and guess what? We have a good chance to win sometimes.
Oh, that was exactly what this article came from. Real quick, that was on Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman from North Dakota State, who everybody's high on. Like, you see him in that, like, that will be a guy in Shock Your Mock that we see time in and time out. He's second ground grade, something like that. But he was talking about how, look, I feel like I'm one of the only guys here at the combine that's not from a big Power 4 school, and I turned down a six-figure check to transfer to come back for my senior year at North Dakota State, and that was best for me. no judgment on anybody else, but I'm the rarity nowadays, and that caused them to run the stats. And it was like every single year there's less and less and less diamonds in the rough. Everybody at the combine is out of Power 4 school.
And you know, if you follow the show at all, you know this, but like my former Pop Warner coach, Tim Polasek, is the head coach of North Dakota State. And I saw him when they played Murray State when I got my jersey retired. And I even asked him, like, dude, how are you keeping up with NIL now and everything? Because, yeah, you're a powerhouse in FCS, but, like, you know, it's not like you're Iowa. You're not Colorado. Like, how do you keep up with it? And he simply said, like, listen, we have the advantage because when it comes to, you know, the in-state rivalries, like North Dakota State, if you're from North Dakota, you want to go to North Dakota State. Like you grew up with that tradition, right? You grew up cheering for them. You grew up, and their fan base is great. So kids from in-state, they still want to go there. They would rather go there and make less money in NIL and maybe win a championship than go to a school like Iowa, maybe play, maybe not, and play in a Big Ten. So that's the difference. But also there's the kind of the carrot that they dangle is, hey, we get to play Colorado. We get to play Iowa. We get to play and still put ourselves on the map. And guess what? If you're good enough and if you ball out, you're going to put yourself on the map to get drafted one day. So it's a rarity, guys, just because like there aren't a lot of North Dakota States out there, but they still exist.
Guys, I'll give you two quick things, right? Parentally, I think that North Dakota State example, once we get this thing solved wherever it lands, I think over the next 3, 4, 5 years of that one after it will be good. And I think parentally, it's almost a place you'd rather be in. And I can just give you I said this to my father-in-law this weekend. I was like, the beauty of like where Kaylee's playing right now at Daytona State, and she'll play down here today, is like it's old school college athletics. Mm-hmm. It's like you don't have a ton of money. You play because you like to play. We're not talking about NIL. You're not going. You can see the path, right? You can be like, hey, you got 2 years, and then if things go well, you go play somewhere else for another 2 years if you're fortunate to do that, and then you got to enter the fray of whatever the landscape looks like at the time. Sure. But this is a very old school path to take right now, and there's something beautiful about that. Like it's genuine. It's all good, like the good things, in my opinion. And even like Ty's at Flagler, and he's redshirting this year, but it's really hard to kind of have a path right now. I mean, who knows? They might bring in 8 transfers next year. And I don't know, does Ty cut? Is he a casualty because of that? Like, it's really hard to plan and have answers and figure that out. Like, that's the world everybody's living in. So I can just tell you from a kid standpoint, from a parent standpoint, sure, those tweets about I'm going here and going there are great, but not everybody's situation ends up great. And really, it puts everybody on edge because you really don't know what it looks like from year to year. And my point is, if we get back to the old model for most college student athletes, like I think it would actually benefit a lot of people, take a lot of the stress away from people, give you more of that normal path. And they don't give a damn about the NIL stuff anyway. They know they're not getting it. Like we don't, that's not part of the equation, right? So to make it the old school way for 80% of, parents, student athletes, everything else might not be a bad thing, like the way you really think about it. The other one, I'll give you this. And as you're saying, Hamby, you're right. See, the problem is Murray State has to pay their coaches more and more just to try to keep up with everybody and be competitive because they're trying to grow. Well, if we take these 64 schools away, whatever it lands on, and we take that away and we return it to normal stuff, we're going to have a different problem. Two problems, and your point brought up, I didn't even think about this. Salaries are going to come down for schools like a Murray State or a National University or whatever else, most likely. So it's going to have to level at some point. But the other thing is schools will actually lose money doing football. When I first went to school, I'll never forget this, this was in the mid-'90s, okay? So obviously a lot of times changed. But I remember seeing an article, and I've never forgotten about it. It was like 75 or 80% of the football programs in America were actually losing money. And the average was like $250,000 a year. And the reason for that was because it's costly to play football, from uniforms to the amount of kids to the travel to other things. Mm-hmm. But it was worth it because you also got cheerleaders and band and school pride and people wanting to go to a football game, much like a high school event, right? Like if Bartram Trail or Creekside or Nice or one of those, they lose a gate because of a hurricane, it's a big deal. They rely on that. One for school spirit, but one for also for people paying $5 a ticket or $6 a ticket. That helps fund their athletic department. That's like the old-fashioned way. So teams were. Many programs across the country 30 years ago were losing money on football. We just heard about the ones making money, like Oklahoma and Alabama and everybody else. Well, we're going to get back to that probably, is the point where schools will lose money on football, but they balance it out because the admissions office is doing okay. We could get back to just that old school model of how it's done for whatever, 250 plus schools that want to play football at all different levels. And then the big boys just go to the big boys and play it like the NFL subdivision, essentially. And the more you think about it, it's like, once we figure it out, once we get there, if that's how we land, like, I actually think it's okay. I think people will actually like it more, and we'll still be able to have action on Tuesday nights and be okay with it.
Yeah, so, and I'm sure sports gamblers are going to appreciate that.
Well, that's true too, right? And you do have that element now in the mix that you can still get that degenerate on a Wednesday night trying to cash a. Which,
cash in the Miami, Ohio Bobcats game, whatever they are, Wildcats.
I was in Vegas for 26 hours and did not wager anything, just to let you know. Which I'm actually disappointed in myself.
Wow, I'm super disappointed in you, man. Yeah. Not even like a Jaguars future bet or anything?
Well, not even that. Like, I didn't even care about that, although I would have looked into it. But I was more, I was like, I just want to go throw like $50 on black at the roulette table.
Sure.
And we just never did it. You know,
Brent,
with everybody.
How's the concert, by the way? Garth Brooks.
Oh, it's terrific.
It was great, huh?
Well,
was being in Vegas kind of like that residency? Did it lose a little luster, like as opposed to like seeing it maybe like in LSU or something, or was it still pretty cool?
Now, different, right? They're different experiences, and now we've seen Garth a handful of times, so it's a different experience. This was really why I wanted to go. I wanted to take my mom because of the venue. Like, I wouldn't have said that if it was at the stadium or in an arena, but the venue was the coolest part about, like, my mom, obviously musician. I figured she would like the storytelling, the kind of the music that goes along with it. It kind of takes you back to some things, and seeing the fiddle play and all that, which is what she plays. So there was a lot to it. Like, I would not have done this if it wasn't in that venue, because there was just something intimate about that venue that he wouldn't do at other shows. Okay. That I really thought she would enjoy, and it worked out that she did. So it's actually just like this venue to me was maybe the best venue. Was the best venue I've seen him in, and I've seen him at the Swamp, and I've seen him at arenas. Steph even saw him at like a baseball field way back in the day in high school. But I think this was the best venue. Wasn't the loudest, obviously, or anything like that, but it was the best venue because of just everything that came with it. So it was good.
Since it was a little more obviously like intimate and special, did Chris Gaines make an appearance?
Chris Gaines did not, but Trisha Yearwood did. Yearwood did. So
I'm still disappointed in you. Still disappointed in you that you didn't let mom get a couple hands in at blackjack. I mean, I was at Best Bet Friday night, and you're in Vegas and you couldn't even lay a wager down. Like, let's go.
Happy's got a wedding to pay for.
Did you see a tie at Best Bet, by the way?
Was he at the one in St. Aug or up the road here?
Yeah, he was St. Aug.
Okay, yeah, I was up the road.
Yeah.
Ty's using that stipend check to get try to get up a little more.
Ty, like he's smart, and you guys should be too. Ty goes when you get those $300 giveaways for just sitting at the table.
Oh,
those are the good nights to go to. Well, every night's a good night to go to Best Bet, but those are the times where he has cashed in a little bit. So you get those 15-minute giveaways, $300. Check them out, bestbet.com, by the way, and go visit all 3 locations at Best Bet: St. Augustine, Jacksonville, and Orange Park. We'll be down there soon enough. Great place to watch March Madness, especially those early games, but the late games too. Those Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays coming up. Best Bet, go visit. Check it out. Let's take a break because we are way late. Brent Austen Show, Action Sports Jax 24/7 Network.
I told you.
Right after this.
He did it. That's legit, Hamby. Keep that next time, please.
I will keep
that is good. Yeah, Paul Skeens, baby.
That thing's way out there.
Where are you? Are you
That's
in
actually
some
in
RV right there?
No,
Like
that's in a
It's
music studio.
1988 shot.
That's a recording
that's
studio
music
right
studio.
there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hanvey, you look like you're like a little mariachi band or something you got going on there. A little mariachi vibe. I like it, man. You look good.
Oh, baby. Brent, send us to break again, please.
What?
Just take us
Come
out
on,
of here.
man.
That was a good way to go. Hit the commercial. When it's time to get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway or shop online at NimnickBuickGMC.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness, and most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick. GMC. We are professional grade. I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants. We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning, and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter. Right now, you can save $500 on a Connecticut Premier Softener and get a free Connect Salt Monitor with purchase. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
The rhythm of my heart is beating like a drum, with We Are Martyr rolling off our tongues. Never will we roam, for we know our place is home. Where the ocean meets the skies, we be sailing. Where the ocean meets the skies, we be sailing.
When it comes to trucks, I know exactly what I want. And at Bozard Ford, they make it easy to get exactly that. Let's go make this truck a little more my style. With Bozard Built, I can create my perfect truck right here. Lift kit? Check. Premium wheels? You bet. Advanced lighting package? Oh yeah. The Bozard team works their magic. From bumper to tailgate, I'm making this truck mine. It's everything that I wanted and more. From the field to the gym to weekend adventures. This truck's built for my journey. Bozard Built. Customized for your lifestyle, built to exceed your expectations. Check out the inventory and available options at bozardbuilt.com. Unleash your dream ride. Customized, covered, and Bozard approved.
If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austin Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Oh, we got a little Florida State UNF action here today for the Ospreys as they go on the road. Boy, Florida State, with all due respect to UNF and JU and others, played a very light schedule so far, but they're off to a great start and undefeated. Meanwhile, Florida was undefeated, won 2 out of 3 against Miami. They, too, are off to a pretty light scheduled start. And even Miami, I don't think Miami's ranked in the top 25. I know Miami's big by name, and they finally lost yesterday in the series finale. Boy, did they have Miami's number. It's been amazing. Quite frankly, Florida's had Florida State's number, too, recently. They'll come to Jacksonville later this month, Florida and Florida State, and they'll play each other a week from today. So I think that will be really one of the big first tests for both teams. But it looks like both are really good. Should be a College World Series contender this baseball season. We have so much going on this week. There's a good softball event over at UNF as well this weekend with JU and Florida State. Softball tomorrow is in town, number 8 in the country against UNF. So big softball week over at the complex. We just talked beach volleyball at UNF recently. Baseball obviously doing its thing right there on the campus of the UNF Ospreys. Just go to UNFospreys.com. And you know, I'll go the elephant in the room conversation here because we love Matthew Driscoll. UNF lost in the ASUN preliminary game on Sunday. Really a weird team. Listen, I get a chance to call those games. It was a weird year for UNF, man. They had 2 Power 4 wins to start the year, Austin and Jason, and you're like, hey. And by the way, that was unexpected. I mean, this is a team that we knew was young, and they had to have new players. They were without Chaz Lanier, who goes to Tennessee, and he's their best player on the team. He's one of the best players on Tennessee's team. He's one of the best teams in the country. So they lost a huge piece. In the last couple of years, they've been raided by the transfer portal, quite frankly, with a lot of their production. So to beat the 2 Power 4s early was really a stunner anyway when it happens, but especially with this makeup of their team. It's not like they returned a bunch of guys and they had an old team, and or the way Lipscomb is built, quite frankly, or JU is built this year. So then the season kind of got weird at times because they lost to Austin Peay at home. They blew a 16-point lead. They got out on people like by 15 points, it felt like a ton of times, and would either lose the game or lose the lead and then have to chase again and win the game. Weird season. Like, it was a disappointing loss again. They were up by 18 at one time, 31-13 on Sunday, and lost to Austin Peay going away. They did not score in the last 5.5 minutes. They scored 3 points in the last 8:07. That is very unusual. So, listen, when that happens, and we talk about UNF, there's been some noise around the program at times the last few years. Like, all right, is it time to change? Is it time to go in a different direction? Matthew Driscoll's been there for a long time. The staff's been there for a long time. And Austin, it's going to be hard for us on this show to say, yeah, it's time for Matthew Driscoll to move on. I don't think you're not going to find that from me.
No.
But there's deeper reasons in that. We wouldn't be doing it just, listen, we can love Matthew Driscoll. There was a time when we loved Gus Bradley, and you can like those things and still have a reality sense of it. Like, okay, is it time to turn the page or whatever else? I just feel like, and I'll give you my 2 cents in a minute, there are a million reasons why you don't turn the page on Matthew Driscoll, even if you're frustrated with the fact that the Ospreys haven't been to the NCAA tournament since 2015.
Yeah, man, I don't have a bad thing to say about Coach Driscoll, and I never will. And I'm never going to call for that guy to lose his position, because I think he's special. I think he's a motivator of young men. Heck, he's a motivator of me, man. Yeah, I think if you look at the resume this season, it was up and down, right? You had a lot of games where you blew some big point leads, but you had some games where you beat some teams that you weren't supposed to beat. So it's kind of hard to really gather of just like what this team was this season. But yeah, I got nothing bad to say about him, man. I mean, listen, I make fun of Trent Baalke a lot, but now that I'm in this position, Brent, I kind of feel what you're going through, and I don't envy you, man. When those paychecks were coming in, when those Venmos were coming in, when those lobster bisque dinners on that yacht were at full force, extra sherry or whatever you put in that lobster bisque. I've only had it once. It's good though. I laughed. I scoffed at it, but now I'm in the position. I'm like, I got nothing bad to say about him. Just like Brent had nothing bad to say about Trent Baalke. So I hope he keeps his job, man. I hope we keep seeing Coach Driscoll, because like I said, I think he's a good dude. I think he's a solid dude. I think he's a motivator of young men. And I think in college coaching, man, that's the most important part.
Yeah, I wonder if Hamby has a different view. I know Coach Driscoll as well as we do over the years, and listen, I understand frustration. I get it. I'm not going to I'm frustrated watching them play at times, honestly. Like they can be so good, and then they just go on these spells and they couldn't figure it out. Now, is that they're one of the most inexperienced games played in the conference? That's reality. They have lost like 4 legitimate scorers in the last 2 years as well, and with that goes experience and age and leadership and all these. Their best players are 2 sophomores and a freshman. And now we ask the question again. There are some people that think those folks will get rated again from this roster. We'll see if that happens and they transfer. I actually think the way they lost and down the stretch of the season, it might benefit them in the long run to keep these guys around for another year and then put them in a position to maybe be a front-running candidate next year. Hamby, I'll just give you a little bit more on this for me. Like, there are things. When you go into that UNF arena, you walk into that arena, and with the help of many people on campus, it's not just one person, but Coach Driscoll and that staff helped build that. What you have now is one of a very, very nice arena, the envy of a lot of other basketball programs, I think, in the area and around the country and in the state. I mean, it's really good. They also have some hurdles that they have to deal with at times that they've always had to deal with, just being UNF and a mid-major and everything else. Then they've had to deal with the conference really screwing a lot of teams, because they brought Liberty into the conference for like 6, 7, 8 years, and that team, they were just dominant. Like there was a window of time where it was just almost impossible to win because Liberty was in the league. And then to the conference's credit, as they tried to they were salvaging the conference at that point. But now the conference has kind of stabilized, and they've tried to make it better in the sport of basketball. Obviously, marquee. It's not a football conference. And so they bring in teams like Eastern Kentucky. And Eastern Kentucky loves its basketball, and they put a lot into their basketball, and like the amount of money spent on basketball, like it's legitimate. And so they become a team that's really good. Now, Jay, you just knocked them off last night at home. It was a really good win for the Dolphins. So, like, you take the last 10 years since they went to the tournament, and you're like, man, there's a lot of different elements. From Liberty to adding more teams to the conference to also now NIL and transfer portal, which makes it really tough for anybody at the mid-major level to compete. Yeah. And, I mean, that alone, outside of the things that Austin would say or will say, I mean, there's nothing bad to say about Driscoll, the way he runs the program, the people that he produces. And what I really think people miss on it is the brand is fun to watch. Like, it's fun to go to a game and watch that brand of ball. Now, you live and die by it sometimes. This was a team, in my estimation, I don't know if Coach would agree, but in my estimation, that once they didn't make some threes, they got a little passive on the defensive end. They couldn't overcome that. That's where, if they were missing some threes, they also were letting buckets score on the other end, which is a bad recipe. They got to figure that out. Most people will say, hey, you got to go get bigs. Well, good luck getting bigs at the mid-major level. Really hard to do. Can you find some more toughness? I think they really have to try to do that. It's been a hard thing to do. Good luck finding it at the mid-major level. I think they have to try to get older. Hard thing to do if you have talented players, because they get rated off your roster this day and age. It's hard. And I just will always say the grass ain't always greener, folks, for the folks that want to change and just change for change's sake. And I think JU's found that out over the years. And Jordan Mincy's doing a really nice job there. But they have tried multiple different renditions of things at Jacksonville University. And man, I couldn't. I mean, they haven't been to the dance since 1986, and we know there's a proud program at JU. It ain't easy to go to the dance at the mid-major level, is my point.
Right.
So, anyway, I'm pretty passionate about what Coach Driscoll's done and what they do, and also the challenges that they have. That I think when the outside world's kind of just looking apples to apples, I get the frustration for not winning. I hope they do. I think it's frustrating from a local standpoint just to say, man, can JU get there? Can they win 2 more games? I mean, it does feel like JU and UNF should be able to make the dance more than once in 40 years. And obviously UNF hasn't been around D1 level that long, but like it feels like the combination of those two schools should be able to make the dance more than once in the last 40 years. I will admit that. So how do we get them there more often? I think this landscape right now in college basketball is tougher than ever, Hamby.
I think the landscape is the biggest part because, look, I don't even need to speak necessarily to UNF and Driscoll's situation. I think from college athletics, it is 100% deserved that these coaches, especially at the mid-major level, should be getting more grace. Not as an excuse or anything like that, but these guys have literally rewired how they go about everything. There's not one thing that's been left off the table of how they haven't had to rethink, recreate as far as recruiting, coaching, the players that are coming in. It's totally different. Nobody knows what's going on in college athletics, period, right? And they might, and of course, every coach would come out and say they know this and they know that, they know how to go about it. But at the end of the day, it's still a learning curve, right? So why don't we give ourselves a couple of years, especially at the mid-major level, especially if we have the leader where we know this guy is the leader of the program from everything else as personality, character, how he motivates, everything like that is the face of what you want your program to be, especially if he's that. You got to give time. I think, in my personal opinion, if I'm an AD in this current landscape, if we can get some rules, if we can get this thing that goes through next year where we get revenue sharing and we have actual transfer portal limits, this is the way that it's supposed to go in football, where there's a limit on how many transfers you can get. There's a limit on how much money you can spend, and they actually have to be real NIL deals. And let's see if the mid-major levels can't begin to climb up once again, because let's not forget, this literally, as far as not just specific to basketball, but this took the most accomplished head coach of this generation and made him quit. Nick Saban quit. He retired earlier before he was not at. I mean, it's not like he's just still young as far as coaching goes. And I know this is completely different landscape, but this is what's happening. This isn't. And Nick Saban is not the only one. The last 2-3 years has been a complete wrecking ball, even since COVID. You could most likely argue where, again, if you've got the guy, the personality, the character, and look, I've had, just in these very few times where we've been able to share a conversation with Driscoll. If I'm a recruit, right, and I know this is not everybody, and I'm sure Driscoll will tell you that he's not for everybody. I'm sure he knows that. But if I am a recruit, I just go suit up for that guy right away. I go suit up right, and as long as an AD, if I could say that about my head coach, right, and he's every other part, then let's keep riding.
Yeah, and listen, I think some people, you could make the argument, does the system work? That it's a fun system to watch. It's an efficient offense. I still think it's kind of modern day, right? I mean, people are launching threes at the NBA. People are saying that's kind of boring because of it. Well, they launch threes at a prolific amount here at UNF. I mean, it's not like it's a 15-year-ago topic and they're still in this system. But can the way they're doing it Can it win big? I guess that's a curiosity still. I think you just hit on something that's really important for ADs. And by the way, Nick's doing a great job. And he vets all this stuff out. And I think he's done a great job at the University of North Florida. But it is, do you want to give the program over to anyone at any sport? But especially like in a big sport like basketball, and not just here at UNF, to your point, this is more overarching, with all the unknowns still going on. Like, Todd Golden is doing a hell of a job. I mean, what a job he's done this year. That team is so good and might win the national championship. But as Mike Norvell showed us, he might come back next year and look terrible. Like, Norvell did it, and it was like, wow. And then it was like, oof. I mean, Golden could do the same thing. Like, we are still trying to figure out the landscape. I think that's a great point. Until we really know what it is and settles it down a little bit, is it worth even making some monster changes? Now, sometimes you got to make change.
Sure.
Yep. I don't think there's enough ammunition to make change at the University of North Florida or anything like that. And by the way, I don't even feel like it's as loud as it has been a couple years ago. It got pretty loud, I think. It felt louder to me. I got a couple comments on social media about it. I mean, that's just a couple comments. And I'm sure Nick's getting some as well. That's just the nature of the business. So I just think you're right about that. And until we kind of figure where the heck this thing is it the time and place for it? Because they obviously continue to get really good players and develop them too. See, that's the other part. That's like a feather in your cap while you're getting rated to not be able to win. It's unbelievable, that whole cycle right now.
We got to get out in
if you're a mid-major. And so we'll see. I don't expect any change. I just thought it was worth a little bit of commentary here coming off Sunday, because I was getting a little bit of that interaction on social media. And good luck to Jacksonville University, by the way. They got to go win 2 games now, but hopefully they can do it, because it's fun when the local teams dance. Like, that's cool. And we'll see. They do have a veteran team, a gritty team. Their defense does travel. They got a scorer in McCray. They can beat you in a couple different ways, but they're going to have to go beat now North Alabama, probably Lipscomb, who are loaded with experience. All those teams came back, so we'll see if they can do it. All right, Austin, good hanging out today, man.
Yep.
Obviously, good wishes to Mark.
Bison,
and,
yep. I'll pass it on.
Everybody. Where are you in Wisconsin? Are you like back home right now?
So I'm in Wausau, Wisconsin. I'm hanging out in the hospital right now. I'm in the waiting room. So we got like probably 10 people in here that are getting included on the Brent and Austen show, man. But you do what you got to do.
Boy, they hate Brent right now. I mean, after 3 hours of that, holy cow, poor guys had to listen to any of that.
Hey, you do what you got to do.
Is that far from Iola?
No, it's where I go snowboarding at. So it's about 45 to 50 minutes away.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, tell everybody hello. And
I'll pass it off.
We'll talk to you again tomorrow. We'll do it again
see you guys
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Brent and Austin show tomorrow, and we keep an eye on these kind of dates, including the franchise tag deadline today. Don't expect anything to go down today for the Jacksonville Jaguars in that department. We'll see who else gets moved over the next couple of days. The new league year begins next week, and that's when all the excitement will start to happen. Thanks for hanging out with us. After the Game is up next with Tom Lucas, St. John's Country Day Baseball, and Josh Baker. Check it out on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network in 5 minutes. It's one of the hot spots in the area.
Welcome you to String Sports Brewery out at the beach. Big crowd on hand tonight. The fans are here.
And now, the newest hot spot at the beach is open. String Sports Brewery in Jacks Beach has opened its doors with rave reviews.
We're going to be fans forever.
Cozy up to the bar. Grab a seat in the sports-themed restaurant, or grab a seat outside and feel that breeze coming off the beach as the weather warms. Just like the original location in Springfield, try the popular beer menu and come for lunch or dinner too, because the food is fantastic. He's got some exciting news heading into 2025 as well. Christian Kirk. It's where we hosted Jags Report Live in the football season, and the String Sports Brewery staff can't wait to host you. Hey, welcome back here to String Sports Brewery. And if you haven't checked out the new location in Jacks Beach, which many of you have, you got to do it. String Sports Brewery, now with 2 locations in Springfield
and now open in Jacks Beach on Penman Road.
2024 provided plenty of memorable moments for the Jacksonville Armada on the pitch, including another conference championship game appearance for Tommy Kruzanovich's under-23 men's team.
It's in the dying moments.
Debuting this year for the first time, the girls in blue, as the Armada fielded a women's under-23 side in the WPSL and made its presence known with some highlight moments.
Potential goal of the season.
Then attention turned to the future, with MLS Next teams representing the Armada badge in 3 age divisions this fall, including an under-19 squad ranking among the best in the state. Those teams are a big focus on Fleet and Footy, covering the big soccer stories each week on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
I'll put one in the back of the net for you.
Join us for player profiles, fun interviews, and the very latest on the Fleet and all things footy. That's every Thursday at 2 p.m.
Baker Sports is local sports. Uniforms from Pop Warner and Little League to travel ball, high school, and college. They make you look good. They help you play good. Baker Sports has been helping families make memories that will last a lifetime with their Baker's Buckets. We've got a lot of these filled with baseballs and softballs in the garage. I've been throwing batting practice to Ty and Kaylee for years, and also sit on the Baker's Bucket, catching Kaylee while she practices or pitching. Baker Sports is homegrown, and a lot of employees that used to play on local ball fields now work for Baker Sports, now helping you look good, play good, and make memories of your own. Visit Bakersport.com to see what Baker Sports can do for you. Custom apparel, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, embroidery, screen printing, and more. Baker Sports is local sports, from Jacksonville to anywhere in the Southeast. Bakersport.com.
The Tom Bush family of dealerships, they've been serving customers in the Jacksonville area for 55 years. They've been your go-to spot to get and stay on the road since 1970, and that's still the case here in 2025 and beyond, even if the cars have changed just a little bit.
Check out the sleek line of vehicles of the future. That's right, electric vehicles. Tom Bush offers a full lineup of reliable electric cars with state-of-the-art service facilities. Like the new VinFast, Tom Bush is among the first dealers in the entire country to offer the VinFast, and let me tell you, this thing is sweet. The good folks at Tom Bush have all the info on charging, service, tax credits, and everything you need to keep your EV running smoothly. BMW, Mazda, Volkswagen, Mini, and the newly offered VinFast. There's something for everyone at the Tom Bush family of dealerships. Ready to join the Tom Bush family? Stop by the showroom or check out the inventory online at tombush.com.
I'm ready to show my hand, ready to take a stand.